You're watching CHCO-TV's gavel-to-gavel coverage of the August 2024 regular council meeting for the town of St. Andrews. I'm Vicki Hogarth.
And I'm Florence Mitchell. Today's meeting begins with a presentation from Senior Planner Alexander Gopin on a development plan for 236 Mowat Drive from Harbour Town Builders. Council will later move to obtain views of the Planning Advisory Committee to Amendment Z22-10 for this development, as well as to set a date of Tuesday, September 3rd at 6:30 p.m. for a public hearing of objections.
Under Planning and Community Development, Councillors Harland and Heenan will move that Council grants leave for the second readings of Amendment MP 20-02-03 and Z22-09 for the Algonquin Hotel. Councillors Harland and Heenan will also open a discussion on communication from the Wesley United Church, asking the town to consider advocating to other levels of government for a guaranteed basic living income.
Under Finance and Administration, Deputy Mayor Akagi will move that the town be authorized to borrow funds from the Bank of Nova Scotia to meet current expenditures of the General Operating Fund, Utility Operating Fund, and the Market Wharf and Market Square refurbishment. Deputy Mayor Akagi will also move that Council approves an increase in the town's Bank of Nova Scotia Visa credit card limit. Finally, Deputy Mayor Akagi will move that Council accepts the Town of St. Andrews 2023 Annual Report.
Under Public Works and Public Safety, Councillors Bennett and Neal will move that Council adopts Amendment A6. This amendment amends two bylaws, Water and Wastewater Bylaw 19-07 and Vehicular Bylaw 18-01. Councillors Bennett and Neal will also move that Council approves the Residential Security Camera Rebate Program for 2024.
Under Economic Development, Business and Culture, Councillors Hurdle and Weir will move that Council authorizes Project Village Car Share and Carry Ride Share to operate within the municipal limits until December 31st, 2024, and that the town agrees to an 18-week pilot project with Carry Ride Share, which includes a financial contribution of $18,000 plus HST to come out of the Economic Development budget.
Councillors Hurdle and Weir will also move that Council grants leave for the first reading of Bylaw 24-03, regulating the licensing of peddlers, buskers, and transient traders, and that Council sets a date of Tuesday, September 3rd at 6:45 p.m. for a public hearing of objections. Additionally, Councillors Hurdle and Weir will move that Council supports the St. Andrews Art Council with a donation of $500 for Choral Fest taking place October 4th to 6th.
Councillors Hurdle and Weir will also open a discussion on a banner request from the Royal Canadian Legion. Finally, Councillors Hurdle and Weir will move that Council supports the St. Andrews Civic Trust Pendlebury Lighthouse Restoration Project with a donation of $5,000. Under Recreation and Environment, Councillors Gumichel and Blanchard will move that Council accepts the Ability New Brunswick Accessibility Report on the Community Youth Activity Centre.
Councillors Gumichel and Blanchard will also move that Council awards tender TSA 2024-03 for the Recreation Master Plan to RCS Strategies at a cost of $39,795 plus HST. Finally, Councillors Gumichel and Blanchard will move that Council approves a request for support from the St. Andrews Paddling Club for the 2024 Dragon Boat Festival taking place Saturday, September 21st, and to work with senior staff on arrangements of the equipment.
Now let's join Council at the W.C. O'Neill Arena Complex, Council Chambers.
All right, everyone, welcome to the regular council meeting here for the town of St. Andrews, Tuesday, August 6, 2024, 6:30 p.m. at the council chambers. This meeting will also be streamed through Zoom and Facebook. If anyone has any questions related to tonight's agenda, please email pnopper@townofstandrews.ca. Mr. Nopper will make sure to put that in the comments as well as he always does. Let's get into the recording of attendance. I note that all members of council are here in attendance with exception of Deputy Mayor Akagi and Councillor Gumichel. Thank you, council, for being here. And I do want to recognize that we're on the unceded traditional territory of the Beskotomogati people. Approval of the agenda. We'll get it out there, the mover and a seconder, but we do have a couple motions that were emailed out after that we will amend and put under new business. Yeah. Okay. So could I have a mover to get the agenda on the floor? I've got Councillor Heenan and seconded by Councillor Neal. So mover and a seconder. I would like to propose that we amend the agenda then at this time to include 2 items under new business. They're before you right now.
Your Worship, 3 items.
Pardon?
3 items.
Three
There was one
items.
emailed this afternoon, so,
Oh, sorry. I've got the noise exemption. I have the meeting schedule review.
and job description senior tour guide.
Okay, in the job description. So could I have a mover to amend it to allow those 3 items? Got Councillor Harland and seconded by Councillor Blanchard. All in favor of the amendment, please signify by saying aye. That has been carried. Any other amendments? Okay, then I will go back now and call the original approval of the agenda. All in favor of the agenda, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That's everybody. Agenda has been carried. Disclosure of conflict of interest, any this evening? Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just regarding a conflict of interest to FA 240822 and FA 240823.
Okay, I'll look for you at that particular time. Recuse yourself, and we'll give you time to go hide in the washroom probably or somewhere really elaborate like that. All right, so now that we're through A to D, we're now into E, which is presentations, and I do know that we have our senior planner, Alexander Gopin, on virtually, and he will be doing a presentation on Harbortown Builders Development Plan for 236 Mowat Drive. Mr. Gopin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Your Worship. I did think I saw Andy come in, so I'll talk about the zoning, and then if there are questions and anything like that, more about the project, it's good that Andy is here and he can answer those. And I'll try and go fairly quickly and just focus on new information because you have been presented with a proposal for the site at least once before, maybe even once before that. There was a just getting the ball rolling. So this is kind of an update on what those plans are, and the developer is wanting to move forward with these plans. So it's 3 PIDs that make up 236 Mowat Drive, currently in the serviced residential zone.
Mr. Gopin, do you have a presentation to share?
Would really help if I shared my screen, wouldn't it?
Little.
Let's do that. That's better, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Great. Okay. So there's currently, combined, they make up about 1.5 acres. One of those PIDs currently has a lot, is a lot with a house and garage on it. And this new proposal, those would be demolished. And the proposal is for a private road condominium development with 12 detached 2-story dwellings. And previously, the last presentation was this would have been a public road subdivision, which adds a fair amount of complication to the municipal side of it. The condominium, happy to answer questions on what that means. It adds some complications, but they're more on the developer legal registration side of things. In St. Andrews, this type of development would only be allowed in the MR2 zone. And there's some other issues as well that make it, again, we're going to stick, it makes most sense for the IDZ zone. Some of the aspects of the Condominium Act is that there has to be condo board established, and that condo board collects fees, and those fees are used to manage common areas and the private road. There could be other parts of the condo board and what their responsibilities are as well. It's quite similar to an HOA, homeowners association. And one thing, sometimes people hear the word condominium and they assume an apartment tower where you buy the units instead of rent them. A condominium is a legal term for a development where instead of buying a fee simple lot, you are buying just a building on a lot, or it could be more than that, but it's a different way of dealing with subdivision rather than doing something under the Community Planning Act and the subdivision bylaw. So as I said before, the integrated development zone is the best fit for this still, given that it would need several variances and the rezoning to the MR2. So in this case, it's easier to rezone to IDZ and use the conditions to place the parameters on the development if council wants to move it ahead. Those conditions can include the types of things you would have in a subdivision agreement. So you can deal with stormwater management there. And then there's other things which are more kind of in this IDZ zone, the conditions you set by resolution. You can deal with design, screening, and really any other matters. And I know you've been considering this zone and how that can work with one of the other items on the agenda tonight, the Algonquin proposal there. So this is it's not quite as big of a site, as big of a proposal, but can still include a lot of those same things. So this is an overhead view of the lot. So it's this house and garage that would be removed. These are some site photos. There's an aerial from not too long ago. And I'm going to hop out of this presentation and just go into PDF to share the images that were provided by the developer. So there are some new renderings. This would be 12, as I said, 12. They're still single unit dwellings, but they're now 2-story. I guess the developer felt like they wanted to provide folks with more room than they had initially proposed. I'll just kind of go through these. There's a common area in the middle. And the developer can maybe speak to some of the inspiration behind this newer design when they wish to speak. One thing don't have there is the site plan. So just give me 1 second. Pull that up because that's worth seeing. One of the big shifts from the last presentation that I think is a good touch is it returns to a more pedestrian-oriented style of development, whereas the previous one was a little bit more car-friendly. This one is very clearly prioritizing pedestrians. I can find the site plan. Here we go. You'll be able to see that. So it's returned to a common parking area at the rear. There's a little bit of extra parking. And the idea is you would park there and then you would access the unit by foot. You might access it without a car at all for Mowat Drive. But this is a really more of the idea of what a pocket community is, the examples that you see. It's this very clearly pedestrian oriented type of community with common areas. So I'll leave it there. And I don't know if you want to ask questions about the bylaw amendment and that process when that comes up in the agenda and have questions for the developer now, but I'm happy to answer questions if there are questions for me at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Gopin. Mr. Jackson, do you want to speak, or are you good with what was presented?
If there's any questions, I can.
I'll get you just. Oh, okay. Yeah, you might as well just jump on the mic if you don't mind. Council, okay. We've heard from Mr. Gopin. Obviously, a revised plan. I'd open it up if there's any questions at this time for any member of council. Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship and Council. The first question that I would have is, how does this affect the people of the private roads that are coming off of the main road that comes down? If it's going to be a private road, these people will still have to use the road.
So there will still be an easement that will allow them to do that. That right can't be extinguished through this process.
Okay.
Perfect. The other thing I note in this proposal is before there was kind of almost like a public space for parks or things like that, and there was concern about it being used. Is it safe to assume that the condo association would be doing all the mowing on that land that's on the other side of the private road that's in front of the residence, and that would almost act as a buffer between the development and the neighbor?
So there's no requirement for land for public purposes when it's not a subdivision. So the land, there's no requirement to turn land over to the municipality, and I assume that all land would be managed by, all common areas would be managed by the condo association.
Perfect. No, it's not that I expect that land to be for public use. It's just the original presentation, I think, the last one, sorry, that we had indicated that there'd be like public space. And this one looks
Yeah.
like it would be maintained as part of the development, but there'd be no development there. So it actually kind of act like a buffer between the development and the neighbors is what I'm gathering this would work as. That's safe to say, Mr. Jones? Yeah. Any other questions, council? Mr. Spear?
Thanks, Andy. I just had a quick question. So for the parking on this, I see you've only got 12 stalls. Oh, and there's extra over here for the extra, for overflow? Okay. And how many's in that corner on the opposite side? 4?
Looks like it's the 1.25 parking
Yeah,
spots.
Okay. Okay. Never mind.
Yeah, it's at the, there would be no variance for parking. That would be right at it, right?
It actually, because these are, I mean, it could be dealt with through the IDZ zone, but if these were considered single unit dwellings, then they would only need 1 parking spot per.
Perfect. Councilor Heaney, another question?
The second plan that we had solar panels, this is out in this one?
It's not necessarily out. We had to scale back some things because of the design change, but it will be probably on the agenda as an option, as an upgrade, if they wanted to add it to the home.
What is the approximate price you would be, what's your price point on them?
For the homes, so we're still in the pricing phase at the moment. We're still trying to keep with the initial pricing concept, because with us adding 3 more additional units, we were able to bring the lot price down. So we're hoping it shouldn't change that much.
Any other member of council? Oh, Councilor Blanchard.
Yeah, just on the parking again, I guess. With those 4, there's sort of the main parking lot, and then there's the 4 spaces just off to the side. Was there a reason why you added them on the side as opposed to just extending out that main parking lot a little bit further? I'm just looking to the one existing neighbor there, putting those 4 parking spaces right in front of their unit, as opposed to just keeping that as a green space. I'm just wondering. I noticed on the overhead map there is some trees there, I guess, that would have to be removed. Is that sort of why?
Yeah,
sort of limiting?
Yeah, we're trying to keep as much screening as possible, and then adding screening as well, so we can kind of keep some privacy for the neighbors as well.
Okay.
Anyone else? All right. Well, thank you very much. There is a motion later too, I believe, pertaining to this item, so we'll be circling back. But appreciate Mr. Gopin and Mr. and Mrs. Jackson for being here. All right, council, let's move ahead to the approval of the minutes from the previous meeting. The first one is the minutes of the 240702 public hearing of objections to amendment MP 20-02-03 and Z 22-09, which is the Algonquin Hotel, Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024, 6:30 p.m. I'll be looking for a mover that these minutes be adopted. Could I have someone please move? I've got Councilor Heenan, seconded by Councilor Blanchard. Any changes to those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of approving those minutes, please signify by saying aye. Okay, that's done. And then the last minutes for this evening is the minutes of the 240702 regular council meeting, which is Tuesday, July 2nd, 2024, 6:45 p.m. Once again, looking for a mover and a seconder. Got Councilor Harland and Councilor Blanchard. All in favor of adopting those minutes, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. We are through the minutes. We are now into communications. We have a request to light up Town Hall in the month of September for Prostate Cancer Foundation of Canada. Does anyone have any concerns over that? It's pertaining in our package. Okay, I'm not seeing any concerns, so we'll just go ahead with that one. We're now into staff reports. I'll pass it over to you, Mr. Spear.
Thank you, Worship. Council, it has been a steady summer, both with outside activities and with visitors from near and far. We continue to expand our recreational offerings and are starting a process to identify what additional initiatives the community are interested in. Thank you for this continuing opportunity to discuss the initiatives of your council and local government. With the lighter summer meeting schedule, the agenda is a bit heavier tonight regarding motions and discussions. On the agenda is a recommendation for the acceptance of a consultant for the Recreation Master Plan. This will be an important process as it relies on public consultation and an assessment of our current facilities to determine a path moving forward for programs and potential investments in new recreational offerings. If approved, the consultant can begin later this month. After a wide-scale water meter replacement program, we will be going to consumption-based billing in the fall for those customers who have been paying a flat fee. The first billing will likely be later than usual, as we have also upgraded equipment and software to initiate electronic readings instead of the manual readings we have been doing for many decades. This will increase efficiency at our end, as well as eliminate transcription errors. After we get through the first couple of billing cycles, the process should be seamless. Included in this package is an updated banking resolution that sets out our annual borrowing limits for the year. Lines of credits are set by provincial regulation, and any long-term borrowing is approved by the New Brunswick government as well. Our only new request is that consideration be given to increase our global credit card limit. In an environment where the world is your shopping mall, we frequently rely on out-of-province suppliers for items we cannot get locally. The same internal controls we use for more traditional purchasing methods are still in place, plus the statements are reviewed monthly by the Assistant Treasurer, Mayor, and CAO. Staff have brought back consideration for the Carry Rideshare service. As pointed out last meeting within the Motor Vehicle Act, permission needs to be given by council for this type of service to operate within a municipality. For the short-term duration of this pilot project, we recommend a resolution be given to allow permission. We have determined both providers meet the requirements as suggested by the Act, and when we revisit our vehicular bylaw later this fall, we will implement the required changes as council sees fit. Under administration, despite the year being just about half over, staff are getting into the budget process again. We will be working together on internal budgets through August while reflecting on the best way to engage the public. As an accountant, I may be biased, but I feel the annual budget is probably the most important document authorized by council on an annual basis. Any new programming or capital initiatives must be thought out in advance so that we have the financials and other resources to meet the services of our community. The Heritage Committee continues their public consultation process this month and are hosting 2 meetings, one on August the 13th for the affected homeowners, plus an additional meeting for the general public on August the 20th. For discussion purposes, an early draft of the bylaw is available on our website or by stopping into Town Hall to get a copy. Council has not brought this for first reading yet and are eager to hear from the public. The initial document was drafted so interested parties could have a clear understanding of the initial recommendation of the committee. Personal letters were sent out to all the affected homeowners for an invite to the meeting. I wanted to provide a brief update on the proposed apartment complex behind the New Brunswick Community College. We are still very early in the concept stages with direction given to the architect last meeting by council on the proposed site and a high-level look at the building. Currently, we're awaiting final reports related to a Phase 2 environmental impact assessment. In connection with the geotechnical report, this would allow us to advance to the next phase, which would be to develop a business model and look for funding partners. It needs to be noted there still will be public consultation required, as the current zoning does not allow for that housing at that location. In discussions with the community, it appears there's general acceptance of the proposal, but that we need to ensure that we follow the process and have a warm and practical design. We will keep council and our citizens informed as progress is made. I'd also like to bring to the public's attention that construction has started on the corner of Water and Princess Royal Streets for the new retail and apartment complex. As the building is adjacent to the sidewalk, access to the sidewalk will be diverted to a walk-around for the next several months. Services. The new tourist directional signs have been erected, replacing the older signs that have been up for 20 years or more and were out of date with some of their information. The new signs maintain the same theming while using larger font and made of material that are much easier to read. We will review whether we should consider additional locations for these signs in the future. The Recreation Department is having a very busy summer as the Canada Day weekend celebrations were expanded and well attended, plus the introduction of day-long camps have been added to our offerings. The available slots are 88% full, with parents opting to enroll their children in additional weeks after they get to live all the experiences the team is offering them on a weekly basis. Although based out of the arena, they have been all over town to experience the various facilities and organizations we have to offer. There is still room available this month, so please call or reach out through our webpage. The youth center is also active as they have shorter versions of day camps for elementary age kids, as well as other free activities for the local teen crowd. A reminder to the community that the 200th anniversary of Chestnut Hall, which currently houses the Ross Memorial Museum, will be taking place on August 24th from 2 to 4 p.m. They have worked hard to get ready for this event and have added new exhibits highlighting the history of the area. For many years, Sheriff Andrews' house has had a tent that children's programming and outdoor events were staged in, but after a couple of decades of service, it finally wore out. However, through funding from the Heritage Grant, we will be replacing that this year and hope to install it in the next couple of weeks. This will also allow those choosing to lunch at the picnic tables a location to avoid the sun and occasional rain. The post-pandemic construction surge has settled down somewhat as the planning report indicates we had 13 permits issued for July. To date in 2024, we've issued 68 permits at a value of $4.6 million. Over the same period last year, we had issued 69 permits for a value of $10.8 million. Although close to the same amount of permits have been issued, there have been smaller builds equating to smaller values. August is always a great month in St. Andrews. Over the last few years, it seems to bring our best weather with more sun and less fog. With the additional trails ready to be opened, as well as the various events, please get out and enjoy your community. It is also a good time to get involved in the various consultations we have going on. If you are unable to make the in-person events, staff are happy to provide you with information so that you can provide feedback to us and participate in the process. Respectfully submitted, Chris Spear, CAO.
Perfect, Mr. Spear, thank you. Anything you want to highlight as far as the financials this evening, or?
Nothing really, Your Worship, that we are on budget, in fact, a little bit ahead of budget. We've had some overages, as you know, related to capital and stuff, so instead of relying on a reserve funds, we'll probably be able to offset that from savings within some of our expenses.
Thank you. Council, you've got your staff reports contained within. Is there any questions related to the staff reports? Councilor Blanchard.
Just a quick question, Mr. Spear. You mentioned the development on Water and Princess Royal. Do we have, did they provide an expected sort of completion date for that? I know the construction's underway now, but.
It's probably going to be about a year to 14 months, I think, 2 years, 2 full years.
Okay, all right,
for
thanks.
everything to be completed.
Anyone else? All right, with that, let's have a motion to accept the staff reports as presented. I've got Councillor Heenan and seconded by Councillor Hurdle. We already asked questions, so all in favor of accepting the staff reports, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That is everybody. We're off that item. We're now getting into the introduction, consideration, and passing of bylaws and motions. And the first one will go to Councillor Heenan.
Thank you, Your Worship and Council. This is reference number PCD 240501, Amendments MP 20-02-03 to the Secondary Municipal Plan MP 20-02 and Z22-01 to the Zoning Bylaw Z22-01 for PIDs 15164-718 and 01324-2844 742039 in B Limited, second reading. The town of St. Andrews has received a secondary municipal plan and zoning bylaw amendment request for PIDs 15164-718 and 01324-2844 742039 in B Limited, the Algonquin Resort. The applicant is seeking to move from tourist commercial zone to integrated development zone to carry out a special purpose development on 2 areas of land. The proposed plans would not fit within the tourist commercial zone and would not conform with the height and massing requirements of the secondary municipal plan. Please see the attached planning report from Mr. Henderson, Director of Planning, for more details. The following is the bylaw process to follow. Public presentation happened May 6, 2024. Obtain views of the PAC May 17, 2024. Obtain views of the Heritage Board May 17, 2024. Public hearing of objections July 2, 2024. First reading was held on July the 2nd, 2024. Council has been provided with the terms and conditions discussed at the July 2nd, 2024 meeting for discussion. Terms and conditions are approved before the third and final reading. And the action is, motion that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews grants leave for the second reading to Amendment MP 20-02-03 to the Secondary Municipal Plan MP 20-02 for PIDs 15164-718 and 01324-284 for 742039 in B Limited Algonquin Hotel. I so move this, Your Worship.
Thank you very much. Could I have a seconder for that motion that has 36 numbers in it? Got Councilor Hurdle. Discussion on this one? All right, then I will call the question. All in favor of going to second reading, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, Your Worship.
Thank you. That has been carried. So it is bylaw number MP 20-0203 being a bylaw to amend bylaw number 22-02 being the secondary municipal plan bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. So I have read it by title the second time on the 6th day of August of 2024. Next motion.
Yes, Your Worship, thank you. Next motion, that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews grants leave for second reading to Amendment Z22-09 to zoning bylaw Z22-01 for PIDs 151-64718 and 01324-284 for 742039 in B Limited Algonquin Hotel. I so move.
Thank you. And again, I'll be looking for a seconder. I've got Councilor Harlan. Discussion on this one. Mr. Spear.
Yes, Council, and I apologize for this, but the proponent and the Alex Henderson, the Director of Planning, needed some clarification, some of the wording in regards, and they worked on that on Friday afternoon, and so this came in over the weekend. It's, I won't say major stuff, but I'll point it out to you. I guess let you determine. So if you flip 3 pages in to section 10.A1, so it says a whitewash wooden clapboard. What they'd like to add to that is or adequate facsimiles of thereof. Then below that, the following material should be used as a primary roofing material. Currently, we have a red metal roof, and they weren't entirely sure where that came from, so they just want a red roof with a color palette consistent with the color palette of the predominantly red shingle roofing that is found on the main building. In relation to Part 13, on dates, make necessary building applications to the Town of St. Andrews by September 1st, 2027. And 13B would be complete construction of the 2-story spa as per the plans filed with the town by September 1st, 2029. So that's 3 years to have the building permits completed and 5 years to have the construction completed. Similarly, that section had to do with the spa. Then Part 14 has the same dates for the O'Brien House. That building permits by September 1st, 2027, and development completed by September 1st, 2029. In an earlier discussion today with the proponents, they are expecting to have everything completed by the end of next year. That is their hope to begin, but there's some legal stuff they have to work through, and there's some heritage archaeological things, sorry, couldn't find my words, around one of the properties that they have to work on that could delay it. They don't anticipate it, but they don't know. Staff support these changes. maybe, I don't know, if, Your Worship, if the planner who's been heavily involved in the heritage wants to speak of it, but we don't think it's to the detriment of the characteristic of the heritage properties of these changes. But I'll leave that in the council's hands.
Perfect. Yeah, I know that when it comes to the red roof, it's just metal roof is not what the current building is. So they were, they'd like the flexibility to maybe match that. Question more on the one that maybe I just didn't pick up from our meeting. Is that an abnormally long time, though, to complete a project like that? Or is that something that you see in a lot of developments like that? And is there a risk of it getting half done and sitting that way for 3 years? Or like,
Well, there's no chance of it getting half done. It's a multi-million dollar.
But I'm just just making sure for the community that we're making sure that this is something that, essentially gets done in a timely fashion, if approved.
So it's longer than we've anticipated from our meetings that we've attended. So really, you and I have talked to the ownership group, and then the planners have been talking to the project group, which doesn't involve the ownership group directly. And so the planner group, which included the asset manager and the architect, thought the 3 and 5 year window would provide them some flexibility. But again, I talked to a representative of the ownership group, and they hope to have shovels in the ground this fall with completion by the end of next year.
Council, it's your discretion. I always hate when a council locks in a future council. That's my concern, and that's a long time frame for. It's a big project, but it's a long time frame, and it's newer than what we're used to, I would say.
Through your worship, just to give an idea on some other developments that have happened in town. So let's take Van Horn Garden Homes, for example. You gave them a 5-year window to develop. Under Evans Land's development for Stonewall Place is 10 years. And so there has been flexibility depending on the development and what the anticipated outcome is. So just to give you context of other options that council has passed.
Thank you for that. Council, any other questions? Councilor Ware.
Yeah, I find
Microphone, please.
I find the time frame a bit long. You mentioned some other developments, but those were housing developments and things like that, which, they do spread out over time. But to take that many years to put up that type of facility seems long. I have the same reaction you do. It seems to be dragging too much.
Especially when we were under the impression that we had to get this passed as soon as possible for the project. It just feels like a bit of, sorry, I saw another hand on this side as well. Was it Councilor Hurdle?
Thank you, Your Worship. My question has to do with the wording around 10A1. Adequate facsimiles. Is there established standards around what an adequate facsimile would be?
I think if it's okay.
Can speak.
Yes, please.
So that's the language we use in the secondary municipal plan for materials in the historic business district. And it's generally includes things like cement fiberboard, which appears very similar to clapboard, and you can do shingles with it as well. It's just a much more durable material. And I'm not, so I haven't been working super closely on this bylaw. I'm not sure if that definition was included in the zoning amendment. If it's not defined, we would look to the secondary municipal plan, since that's an established definition in the town.
Thank you.
Councilor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship. I agree with Councillor Weir. We were put under the gun that we almost even had to have another meeting to get this plan worked up, and now we have a 3-year time frame. Like I find it, we were under the gun to get the product done, get everything done, and now we're having a 3-year. It's too long. I'm sorry, but it is too long for me. Thank you, Your Worship.
All right. Councilor Harlan.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. So what are the implications if we give them, what would a typical time frame be?
That's a big, it depends.
Loaded question.
Yeah,
it could be 2 years, like closer to what Anchor's Landing had, or it could be 10, depending on the project. 10 is very long, I would say. Usually,
I would say, Your Worship, and again, we're still in the negotiation stage to a certain extent. If council feels they want to amend those dates to something shorter, feel free to. And like I said, if the proponent thinks they're going to start construction this fall, then maybe you say a year to have the building permits in and 2 to 3 years to have the construction completed and call it a day.
And so my second question with respect to that is, what are the implications if they don't meet that deadline? Do they come to us and request?
Yes, so that these conditions are being put within the bylaw by resolution. And so if they don't meet them, we'd have to amend the bylaw so they can meet, so they couldn't continue. Well, from a practical standpoint, if they began their thing and they're going to be 3 months after, we're not going to go up there with the stop work order. We'd keep on top of the project and have it amended, 5 or 6 months to a year in advance if we knew they were a little late getting started. But hypothetically, we could put a stop work order if they didn't meet any of their deadlines.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ware, I saw his hand.
Yeah, just one comment. From a practical point of view, regardless of what we put on it for timeframes, whether it's 27, 28, or 29, unless we're holding some type of bond, performance bond, what are we going to do? We're just going to give them an extension. So unless we're willing to put a performance bond in place for enough money to make it worthwhile for them to meet the deadlines, they just come back and say, no, we're not done yet.
Yeah, to that point, like Anchor's Landing, when it was originally built, it did have a performance bond associated with that. Mr. Spear, I saw your hand.
Yeah, just to touch on that point, Your Worship, I guess there's a couple of things. So, Councillor Ware is correct. Although that's becoming an outdated method, a lot of the other municipalities don't. They just rely on the reputation of the contractors, and it's the reality. I'd rather have a performance bond on. The other thing is a little different with some of these other housing developments because they were integrating into our municipal infrastructure, and this one really isn't. That everything's going to be pretty much on their own land. So there's less, so all we're really looking for is to have the thing completed. And I guess it goes back to, once they get started, they probably can't afford not to complete it, to be perfectly honest. That it's, they're going to have millions of dollars put into it. And so I'm not worried that they won't complete it once started. It's just a timeline of, I'm not sure what could slow it down. Again, they have full intentions of starting this in the next few months.
Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson and Council. Respectfully, I think if anybody can understand what issues can come up, I think we should understand. If they have to do archaeology, thank you, dig, then God knows what can come up in that, especially in the area we're in. We ourselves now are in the middle of an environmental issue with our wharf, and we're looking at possible extensions, God knows how long to that. So if anybody can be considering of what could happen, I think we should have a lot of consideration for what ifs and what can happen. So for that reason and for everything that's already been said here tonight, these people, once they start building, they're going to want it built and done. They're not going to want to, be half done a building and let it sit for years on end. These people are in the business of making money, and the building doesn't make money until they got customers walking through the door. So I think they have a lot more vested in it than we do. And for those reasons, I'm happy with the way that this reads now. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, Councillor Neal. You haven't gone yet.
Thank you. I guess my only concern, echoing what Councillor Bennett just said, I don't necessarily have an issue with the timeframes as they're worded here, because it looks to me like they're looking at a 2-year build. What I think could be a little concerning, again, if they're so eager to get going, is the only concern they have this archaeological dig?
Yes.
Or, I'm wondering why, if they're so eager to get started, they want this 3-year window to put building permits in.
Well, I guess to say the architects are always going to err on the side of caution, so when they were formatting this, they wanted to make sure everything was met. Something that could happen, and I'm not saying it is, but once they haven't submitted drawings yet, and if there's something that comes in that doesn't meet the National Building Code, I'm assuming it's going to, but these things happen, they do, that it could slow it down a little bit, that's all, but it doesn't usually slow it down by years, honestly. It might be a difference in a month as they have to talk about something back and forth with the Regional Service Commission. But as far as something, you know, from a business perspective, it could be funding, but I can't speak to that, but it has never been a concern expressed by the proponent. It's just another thing that can happen on any type of project.
Okay, so would it be unreasonable then to put a clause or something into this stating that once the building permit has been signed, that we give them a time frame? So if they do happen to start this fall, the way this is worded now, they technically have 5 years to complete it, which could be somewhat worrisome. But.
And that's perfectly at council's purview.
So what I'm kind of getting is kind of two perspectives. So one is what was within the document we have. The other might be a shorter time frame where they have a year to get the building permit and 3 years to complete the project, because they were planning to do it in 2 years. That's giving them an extra year. And that's kind of sounds to me like a compromise of what council wants. And even if they can't, they can always come back to council and ask for an extension. It just doesn't lock the next council into having a decision by this council by saying 5 years if nothing happens. 3 years to get going, it means the next council that sits around this table might say, how's that going? Oh, the previous council gave them 3 years, right? Like if you can avoid that stuff, you should avoid that stuff. If you can't, you can't. For some multi-phase developments, we know you can't. It takes multiple years to do. So council, I just want a quick consensus. If anyone feel better about the 1 year for building permits, 3 years to complete, just a show of hands if you like that tighter time frame. All right. I'm seeing kind of, you want to hold your hands up there? Just seeing 3. And how many are happy with the way it is stated here today? Is that 3? Am I getting 3-3 here? Okay, I will break the tie, which I never get to do. I will go 1 year and 3 year. They can always come back to council if they want to extend that. And would that require 3 readings or just a motion by council?
It would just require a motion by council. Oh, hold on. Yeah. Just
yeah.
That's it. Yeah, because it's a resolution. You can just do it by resolution.
So it'd be just a touch point. We didn't get going. This is why. Come back to us. I don't see why we wouldn't have that control in place. Okay, so consensus that it's important to note that that is for 3rd reading though, and I still have to do a second of this particular, I guess you could say zoning bylaw, Z 22-09. So we still have a motion on the table and a seconder.
Realistically, you have a motion and a seconder. We should do an amendment just to include the changes to the bylaw.
So we'll be looking for amendment for the change in time frame as stated, the 1 year for the actual permits, the 3 years for completion of the project. Mr. Spear?
Sorry, Your Worship. Sorry, Your Worship. Sorry, my fingers aren't working tonight. It also to amend 10A1 that you'll accept wooden clapboard or adequate facsimiles thereof, and in 10B1 to reduce the word metal.
I get you.
All of that.
Fair enough. Okay. So for all of those amendments I just said, could I have a mover for that amendment? I've got Councillor Heenan, a seconder. Councillor Bennett, discussion. All in favor of those amendments, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That has been amended, so we're back to the original question. Is there any more? That was a lengthy one, any big project, but any more discussion? Okay, I will call the question then. All in favor of going to the 2nd reading on the zoning bylaw, please signify by saying aye. All right. And any opposed? Seeing none. This is bylaw number Z22-09, a bylaw to amend bylaws number Z22-01, being the zoning bylaw for the town of St. Andrews. It's been read a second time, 6th day of August 2024. We are off that one, and we are over to Councillor Harland.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. So this is reference number PCD 240702. And the subject is Amendment Z22-10 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01, PIDs 15025083 and 01326214 and 01325406. 236 Mowat Drive, Harbortown Builders call for public hearing of objections and views of the Planning Advisory Committee. The background is as follows. The town of St. Andrews has received a rezoning request for PIDs 150258083, 013262214, and 013254006 for 236 Mowat Drive from Harbortown Builders. They are looking to create a small subdivision of 2-story homes. Please see the attached planning report from Alexander Gopin, Senior Planner, for more details. Note that Harbortown Builders presented to Council twice this year on this subdivision concept, but has since made changes based on comments received on July 2nd, 2024. The bylaw process is as follows. Public presentation today, August 6, 2024. Views of the Planning Advisory Committee. Public hearing of objections. First reading, second reading, third and final reading. Note that there would be the need to be a subdivision. There would be a need to be a subdivision agreement in place before the third and final reading. Additionally, Harbortown Builders may be seeking support from the town for a public road and infrastructure. Staff will provide more details at a later date. The motion is as follows: that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews obtains views of the Planning Advisory Committee to Amendment Z22-10 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01 for PIDs 150258083, 013262214, and 013254006 for 236 Mowat Drive for Harbortown Builders as per the Community Planning Act, Section 110, and I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Harlan. The seconder for that one. I've got Councillor Neal. Discussion? Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship. It mentions here that Harbortown Builders may be seeking support from the town for public road and infrastructure. Did we not agree it's going to be a private road now?
Correct.
Yeah,
Correct.
I'm seeing through the town clerk that is correct.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's for the background though, right? Yeah. Councillor,
Is that just a holdover from the last time? I don't think that's accurate anymore.
Yeah, that's correct, Mr. Gopin.
okay, but it's not in the motion, so it's just the background, but that's good to clarify that. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just first off, wanted to say thank you very much to Harbortown for coming up with a very innovative and creative design concept, and I think something that looks really great and enhances walkability in the green space as well. So thank you. My only concern would be the existing structure that's there now. I can't really see past the hedge, and I've never looked that closely. If there's any heritage value in that home at all, I don't know when it was built. I don't think it's that old, but I don't know the building that well. So is there any concern from that point of view?
We'll have to review that. Top of my head, I don't think so, but to be honest, I don't have the list right in front of me. Mr. Gopin, have you reviewed that?
Yeah, off the top of my head, I mean, I certainly have seen it when I did my site visit. It didn't strike me as anything in all the work we've been doing on the heritage stuff.
It's a good question. We'll review it. The list is already made within the proposed heritage bylaw, so we'll see if it's identified in there or not.
But to that point, the staff can review it, and they could put terms and conditions on the rezoning, that be part of the process if it is deemed that it's a heritage building. You could put that any material that is in the same words of what the proposed heritage bylaw. Keep in mind, the heritage bylaw would not apply out there even if it was intact. Yep. Okay. All right. Anyone else? Okay, let's call the question. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everybody. That's been carried. Next motion.
The next motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews sets the date of Tuesday, September the 3rd, 2024, at 6:30 for a public hearing of objection to Amendment Z22-10 to the zoning bylaw Z22-01 for PIDs 150258083, 01326214, and 01325406 for 236 Mowat Drive for Harbortown Builders as per the Community Planning Act, Section 111. And I so move.
And once again, I'll be looking for the seconder for that one. Councillor Neal, discussion on that one. Okay, all in favor of setting September 3rd, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That's everybody. That hearing of objections has been set, and that would end that item. So we'll jump ahead right now to the discussion on the request for support for Wesley United Church on guaranteed basic living income. I don't know if staff, you're going to lead this, but I know that we had a discussion during a work session. It was a request that we send kind of a letter of support from the municipality. And we kind of had some difference of opinion between, not necessarily that people shouldn't have it, it's just, should the municipality be the one? Do we have enough information? How does it impact businesses? But then there's also the principle of how everybody should be above the poverty line, especially if they're working, right? So there was two sides to that one. I very quickly summarized it, but council, I guess we're going to have a discussion on if you'd like me to send a letter or not. Is that what it essentially is?
Through your worship, actually, part of the discussion was that if council can lobby within the processes to other levels of government through different processes, if there's a pilot project or some opportunities to send letters or other ways to support this, that would be council's prerogative and sort of what they're asking for within that within the request. So you do have the background in front of you. I was able to do some digging on some different programs that have been offered since the 1970s that have been effective. I know that the Senate is looking at two separate bills and processes and study of this. There was a directive through the last federal government's processes to look at guaranteed basic living income. But beyond that, no programs have been offered in New Brunswick at this time or an official federal program offered. Beyond that, council, you have the information that we have.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Knopper. Council, so just, I know we discussed it a little bit. Just, we want to open it back up, or you just want to just do a show of hands? How many would like us to do that? Just signify by saying aye. Just hold your hand up. And we'll do a count, and if you don't, I'll ask the question after that. How many would like to see us lobby, also send that letter, and just be an active thing that we pretty much add under our, if you look at our council priorities, there was one that had lobbying, and there's a list there. We should really get back to that, but if you guys put this forward, and girls, then I'll put it back, I'll put that with the other ones that we have ongoing. So quick show of hands if you would like this to be added. That is majority, so we'll add it in. And I don't think we need to revisit everything, council. If you're okay, it's a big agenda. Is everyone okay with that? We'll just add it in and go from there.
Your worship, at the next meeting, we'll bring forward a motion unless you want to make a motion now. There is an example motion there of support if you wish. You should have a formal motion of council.
Okay, so the formal motion, we have a mover that basically council supports the Wesley United Church. What's the word I'm looking for? It's not a motion, but they're...
Here, your worship, there is an example motion here that...
is there one right there?
Yeah, so that the council of the town of St. Andrews supports the development and implementation of a guaranteed basic living income program and will advocate to other levels of government in support of this program.
Perfect, you nailed that, very well done. Could I have a mover for that? Councillor Heenan, seconded by Councillor Harland. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? One opposed. Please note the nay, Mr. Knopper. We will move on now to Finance and Administration. Would anybody like to play the role of Deputy Mayor Akaji this evening? I've got Councillor Heenan very quick wanting to be the Deputy Mayor. Go ahead.
Yes, your worship.
Councillor Heenan, could you Councillor Heenan?
Oh.
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councillor Hurdle. Go outside. Cooler. It's cool back here too. Okay. Okay now? Yep. Your worship and council, FA 240822, Bank of Nova Scotia Operating Agreement 2024-2025. Under the Local Governments Act and its regulation, municipalities are allowed short-term operating loans to cover their day-to-day expenses. The amounts are as follows. General operating fund up to 4% of the general operating fund budget, or $300,000. Utility operating fund up to $50,000 or 50% of utility operating fund, or $400,000. As a line of credit, we only borrow when necessary. Over the last couple of years, we have only accessed them once. However, with the wharf project upcoming, that will likely increase. In addition, council already authorized and received authority from the Municipal Capital Borrowing Board for the wharf project. Interim funding related to that is supplied by our banking partner and requires its own motion.
With online purchases becoming more common, we are using the town Visa more often. Visa balance are paid monthly, 15 days after closing date. Occasionally, we have 45 days worth of purchases on it and reach the limit on the Visa. Following all procurement policies standards, we request an increase in the Visa limit to $30,000. The action is, be it moved that the mayor and treasurer or the assistant treasurer are hereby authorized to borrow on behalf of the town of St. Andrews from the Bank of Nova Scotia from time to time by way of a promissory note, a sum or sums not exceeding, nay, one time $300,000 to meet current expenditures of general operating fund and $400,000 to meet current expenditures of the utility operating fund of the corporation for the year of 2024-25. And be it moved that the mayor, deputy mayor, and the treasurer or assistant treasurer are hereby authorized to borrow on behalf of the town of St. Andrews from the Bank of Nova Scotia from time to time by way of a promissory note, sum or sums not exceeding any one time $2,200,000 towards Market Square and Market Square refurbishment. I so move it, Your Worship.
Seconder for that one. Councillor Harlan, discussion on this one. Okay, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, Your Worship.
That's everybody. It's been carried. Next motion.
Yes, Your Worship. Motion, be it moved that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the Bank of Nova Scotia Visa card limit increase to $30,000. I so move.
Seconder once again. We've got Councillor Blanchard. Discussion on this one. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye, Your Worship.
That has been approved. We will let Councillor Hurdle come back before we jump over to the annual report. Making pretty good time overall, Council. Yeah, it's a lot of heavy motions and it's moving along.
Okay.
Okay, we are jumping over Deputy Mayor Heenan.
Thank you. FA 240823, Town of St. Andrews 2023 Annual Report. As per the Local Governments Act, Section 105, all municipalities have to develop an annual report of council and the financial statements of the town. This document will be available for the public to access online and at the town hall. Provided with this report is a copy of the Town of St. Andrews 2022 Annual Report. The document highlights 1. Introduction and community profile, Municipal Council of 2023, review of councilors' attendance at regular and special council meetings, review of closed sessions meetings of council, grants issued by the Town of St. Andrews, municipal corporation information and municipal salary ranges, audited financial statements from 2023, all motions of council from 2023. And the motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews accepts the Town of St. Andrews 2023 Annual Report. Your Worship, I so move.
Thank you very much. Seconder for that one. Got Councillor Bennett. Discussion? Just want to say, Council, when you get into kind of pages 6 and 7, it gets into your attendance. I just want to note how impressive it is, the attendance ratio that this council has, and it's very appreciated. Everybody to give up that much time in the run of a year, if you look at all those X's, I don't know what it is, it looks like 95% X's, right? It's pretty high, especially when a lot of us have day jobs as well, so it's greatly appreciated. So with that being said, call the question. All in favor of accepting that report, which Mr. Knopper puts together, which is a pile of work?
I would also like to point out Nancy Cooper for all of her hard work
okay,
that helped put together.
Never mind, I don't recognize you, Nancy Cooper.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. She's probably watching, Nancy. I don't want to owe you another gift card. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. That is everybody. It has been carried. So you absolutely can.
I just want to thank the staff for putting a picture in on page 110 of the south line of my property. And now you understand why I stay in Bayside.
Thank you, Councillor Ware. All right, let's jump ahead to Public Works and Public Safety, and I think Councillor Bennett is first.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. Reference number PWPS 240802. Subject Amendment A-6 to bylaw number 19-07, water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates. And the background reads, in 2019, the council of the day decided we needed to go to flat rate billing as we took on a major project to upgrade the water meters for many of our customers. To promote conservation and fairness across the system, council has invested in new equipment, staff resources, and new software. Staff gathered opening readings in the spring so we can go to full consumption-based billing this fall. It should be noted that the exception is low. Note that the exception is low users will see a small decrease. The high volume consumers will see a significant increase from flat rate from 20 to 30% increase. And the motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews adopts Amendment A-6 to bylaw number 19-07, a bylaw relating to water systems, water rates, wastewater systems, and wastewater rates, and I so move.
Perfect. Could I have a seconder? I've got Councillor Heenan. Open up to discussion. Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship and Council, I would just like to give a pat on the back to the people, the staff who have taken it on to do all of this. I mean, it's been a big, big job, and I'd just like to say thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Heenan. The truth is, in 2019, it was something we reverted back on. It's been flat rate billing a lot longer than that, and we talk about kind of some of the actions that we have to do for environment and the fact that people can, to some degree, put whatever amount of water they want on their lawn when there's droughts and things like that. At least now, if you're going to be using it, you're going to be paying for it. And then senior citizens that live in this community paying the exact same rate as myself with a family of 5 that the washing machine doesn't seem to stop. It's not fair. It's not fair. And I think this will be a great step for conservation in our community. And it's the right thing to do. And as well, if people are trying to cut costs, one way they could do it is use less water, which is a good practice. So, Council, any other debate that you'd like to add to this one? Okay, I will call the question. Yep.
Just a quick question around the rate itself, where it was drawn from and how it was determined. So when I guess like 2,500 gallons, it works out to a certain mathematical equation, but then 25,000 gallons is not that much of a difference really relative. Can you just explain that a little bit?
Sure. So there's a methodology put out by I think it's the AWWA, the American Water and Wastewater Association, that comes up, and it's a combination of the base rate, which is basically paying for the equipment to get the water from the plant to people's homes, and then the consumption portion. Back in 2 previous councils ago, I think 2017, 2018, actually I wrote it in your report, 2018, there was a pair of gentlemen from Nova Scotia that came over. In Nova Scotia, all water utilities, at least at that time, had to go to the equivalent of the Utility Rates Board and make a presentation based on these rates. So these types of studies are very common in other jurisdictions across New Brunswick. So a lot of it's based on depreciation, what everything looks like, how much investment is going to be in the system, how much consumption is typically used, the cost of the different pipe sizes. So this is only the small residential users. So bigger properties, I won't name names, but like there's some that use millions of gallons are going to pay 50 times more. We've got bills that are $40,000, $50,000, for instance. So it's a common methodology. It's supposed to be done every 4 or 5 years, but a lot of it relies on the credibility of your data, especially on how much your consumers are using. So I'm going to suggest we're probably 2 or 3 years away before we have enough reliable data to be able to complete that again. And then at that time, we'll have a better idea of our asset management plan. Terry's been very good in keeping up with it, but we'll have it all laid out for a 10-year window or so, and then we can do a recalculation and see where rates should be. Personally, there's a lot of recapitalization needed in the water and wastewater system, and the rates probably are still late, and frankly, we're looking at semi-annual charges of $500 in St. Stephen. That's a high user. In St. Stephen, I think it's $1,000, $250 a quarter. So I think there's still room for us to move, but we want to prevent rate shock, and what we're proposing here should give us close to the same revenue. And then once we get a handle on that, then we can look at incremental increases to help with the recapitalization of our infrastructure over the next decade or so.
The other thing just on that, Mr. Spear, to note, was it 2018, I think, that the town hired a consultant to go in and look what they do in other communities and what could be implemented here, because, when we talk about budgets and importance, the operating fund, we have to watch our debt service ratio, but the one that actually keeps me up at night is actually the utility, the water and wastewater. It's if you look at the infrastructure in place and the amount of debt we're able to carry, we do need to figure out a way to get more revenue, and it makes sense that those that use it the most are the ones that pay more, and the ones that use it the less are the ones that pay less, keeping in mind that there will be standard fees. If you have a summer home here and you're here for a week, you still have to pay in, because all that infrastructure that goes to your home is still needed to be able to work.
To that, excuse me, if I'm allowed to ask a
Yeah, for sure.
To that effect, is this, in a sense, a way to phase in the cost? Because when I look at this as obviously not an expert in this field, it appears to favor the higher end users, as the fact that if you're using 10 times as much water as the low end user, you're paying less than half as much, or less than twice as much more. So it just seems to be a bit of a disconnect with how that gets phased in.
So another way to look at it is like owning a car. So there's a base cost of owning a car, whether you drive at 2,500 kilometers a year or 25,000 kilometers a year. And as the mayor was putting towards the operating costs are insignificant in the utility compared to the capital cost. And so that's why. So for those that don't use a lot, it's a hard thing to say, but the privilege of having the water available to use is a big cost. And then the consumption is incremental on that.
So I think what we're seeing here, the majority of the cost is the infrastructure versus the flow.
Absolutely.
Correct. Thank you.
Perfect. Any other questions? All right, I'll call it then. All in favor of adopting this amendment, please signify by saying aye. It's everybody that has been carried. Thank you, council. And then we are switching over to the one related to parking, which is Councillor Neal.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. This is PWPS 240808, and the subject reads Amendment Number A-6 to Schedule B, no parking anytime, to bylaw number 18-01, the vehicular bylaw. The background reads that at the July 2nd, 2024 regular council meeting, under new business, staff were directed to provide parking on Princess Royal Street between Water and the boat launch. Staff have opened parking along the west side of Princess Royal Street up to Pagan Street. This report is to formally address this change under bylaw 18-01, the vehicular bylaw for the town. As this is a change to the schedules, only one reading of council is needed. So the motion reads that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the amendment number A-6 to Schedule B, no parking anytime, to allow parking on Princess Royal Street between Water Street and the boat launch along the west side of the street from Water to Pagan Street. And I so move.
Thank you. Seconder for that one. Councillor Harlan. We kind of discussed this already. This is almost a formality, but is there any questions or comments? Okay, all in favor of approving this motion, please signify by saying aye. Once again, that one has been carried. Councillor Neal, the next one.
The next one is reference number PWPS 240809. And the subject is a residential security camera rebate program. So the background reads, with the increase in criminal activity in the town of St. Andrews, council is seeking ways to create community safety and how the community can support the RCMP with identifying criminal activity and supporting the investigation process. Please see the attached document for more details. The town is proposing a new residential security camera rebate program. The program will offer residents a $100 rebate on the purchase of security cameras. Residents must purchase the cameras first, have them installed, and take pictures of the installation. There are specific criteria the cameras need to meet to be eligible for the program. Suggestions of cameras for purchase will be provided to residents. Residents will fill out an application form along with pictures of cameras installed and a copy of the receipt for the purchase of cameras. To be eligible for the rebate, residents will be committed to providing security camera footage to the town and the RCMP to help with criminal investigations. To start the program, the town is offering 50 first-come, first-served rebates. The first round of operation of the program will run from, if approved, August 7th, 2024 to October 31st, 2024, or until all funds have been distributed. Depending on the success of the program, council can look to budget funds for 2025 year to continue the program. The motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the residential security camera rebate program for 2024. And I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Neal. I'll be looking for a seconder for that motion. Councillor Heenan, discussion on this one? Okay, I've got a few. Go, Councillor Weather, we'll go to Councillor Heenan.
I think we may be fooling ourselves a little bit on this one, in that these cameras we're looking at funding really won't accomplish what we hope they will. Most of them are very low end. Happened to pick one out and bring it with me. You know, in order to get the recording, you have to go in here, pull out your micro SD card, put it in your computer or whatever, and have a look at it. Now, if this is up on your eaves or somewhere, you got to get a stepladder and go up there. My experience with this type of camera is it wears out very quickly on people. They're not interested in crawling up there and digging these micro SD cards out. They only last for a few days, and you know, what they're commonly used for is you log into them with your cell phone and you have a look around what's going on around your house. And I don't think we'll get the recorded footage that we would like. I think this is from my dog, but you know, I think we may be expecting more than we're going to get. It just doesn't do the trick. Not enough storage, and it's not readily available. The other type is something like this. This is a Lorex, which is wireless, hooks into an NVR, which is a network video recorder. This camera processes the digital image, transmits it to the NVR. The NVR has a 1 terabyte drive in it. So it's about 3 months of recording on there before I have to erase it and start over. In fact, it'll erase itself. It'll just keep recording over. These ones, you know, for $300 to $400, you can get 2 cameras and an NVR, and the NVR is capable of handling up to 8 cameras. So I think what we're looking at is we're not going to get the results we anticipate. Not saying it's a bad idea. It's just that I think we're going to be disappointed with the results. I looked after security for 15 years at the port, and RCMP used to come in and look periodically, but I had DVRs and NVRs, and they could go back several weeks and look. I remember one was a murder case. They wanted to see if they'd dumped the body off the wharf, and you know, they went through and everything's dated and they could look at it. But so those are my comments. I'm not saying it's a bad program. I just don't think we'll accomplish what we want to.
Thank you, Councillor Well. I'll pass it over to Councillor Heenan. I just wanted to say that there is different systems. For example, my system, if someone's checking my doors on my car at night, I actually get a notification on my phone, and I can pick it up and call the police and say somebody is in my neighborhood right now checking the doors. And I think that's the purpose behind it. You see a lot of the crime right now, what's happening across Charlotte County, hoods up. Look at the one that happened at Milltown Convenience. Like, they look like Kenny from South Park. You couldn't see their face. They had it all covered up. So I don't know if it necessarily will lead necessarily to an arrest for the evidence side, but I think that there's an opportunity to the more you have is the more information you can collect. And I think it's also a proactive measure that the community can say that we are doing something to try to make this community safer within the powers that we have. We can lobby against RCMP to say we need more coverage. We can lobby against the court system that continues to do catch and release and that we're seeing across Charlotte County. We can lobby to get more addiction services, more mental health services, and all these factors that are together. But the truth is, this is one of the few things that we ourselves can control. But I do hear your point. If you do not have the right system, it's a pile of work. But for me, myself, I can literally just hit save video, and I could send it right to the police. It's how easy it is for me. I can email it right away. It pops up on my phone and says, person spotted in your driveway, person spotted in your backyard. It'll tell you where it is. And also, my system was $600, also has facial recognition. So if it was one of my kids coming home, it would say their name right on it. And again, that's a $600 system with no monthly monitoring. So depending to your point, what system you get, it may be of benefit, it may not be, but I think if you have 50 cameras more in your community, if people do decide, I do think it does make it a safer community. And I look at the fire that happened in St. Stephen where the boat caught fire. Only reason they caught who it was is because they saw him on one of the cameras that he was crossing in the backyard and were able to identify him on the way there. So, Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship. Well, it makes me add to Councillor Weir's comments. First off, I believe it's a deterrent. No matter what kind of a system you have, it's a deterrent. Secondly, I've never climbed a ladder to see my system, and I'm in Alaska, and I can tell who's in my yard and the license plate and the person that's in it. It was a $56 doorbell cam. So I can see it in Alaska. I can push record, as the mayor said, and I don't have any troubles at all in knowing. Someone accused me, actually, of my dumpster upsetting while I was away. It wasn't mine. I found it on the camera, so it's as good as that. And the third question that I started out with is, are seasonal residents who have houses here allowed to apply for this, or is it just full-time residents?
The way it reads today is it's residents, so you're a taxpayer of the town of St. Andrews and have a residential home. It's not business at this time.
Right.
Because I did talk to staff about that.
Yes.
Maybe that's a phase later, but you could also oversaturate the same area. The hope is between the wards of Shamcook, Bayside, and St. Andrews, we get a few more cameras.
Yes.
And where this all came from, just to remind council, is we originally had a proposal from NB Power or for the a light pole camera that was low resolution, and the cost of one of those cameras was almost equivalent to what this whole pilot project was going to be. And that's where this kind of evolved and came back. Good question, though.
Yes.
Anyone else? Okay, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. And that's everybody, so it has been carried. The next motion would be...
Your Worship, just to carry on, to give staff maybe a week, we'll put get the applications ready and people can either download them or something.
Do you want to just set a date now, just so we can make the public aware? It's the 6th now. Want to give yourself...
The 12th, so that's next Monday morning. Next Monday morning, they'll either be available...
Are you sure that's... I don't want to put you on a time crunch if you need a little more.
Paul doesn't have to sleep, it's okay.
Your Worship, I just have to make
Hey,
fillable PDFs and then save them, and I've already got the
AI does so much now, Mr. Knopper.
Exactly.
All right. So those that are watching this, it'll be available for Town Hall at the 12th to get more detail. And the reality is
Your Worship, and just to recall, if you're letting the public know, it will be a first come, first serve, 50 opportunities to start. There will be the criteria. We'll have it online to download, so you'll know what you have to do for steps, but it will be a first come, first serve, open to Bayside, Shamcook, and St. Andrews.
Councillor Ware's point, though, I think 50 would be definitely a surprise in a 2-month period. So we'll see how much uptick it has. You can look back and say, "Told you so." How about that? All right, Councillor Neal. Oh no, we're not at Councillor Neal. We are now off of that. We're on economic development, and that's Councillor Hurdle and Ware. And the first one is
Page 179.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is in reference to EBC 240802, the vehicle for hire company authorization to operate in the town of St. Andrews. It was brought forward by our esteemed colleague at the July 2nd, 2024 regular council meeting that under the Motor Vehicle Act of New Brunswick, section 197.1 states that no vehicle for hire company shall carry on business or facilitate the offer of vehicle for hire services within the territorial limits of a local authority unless authorized to do so by the local authority. There are two companies currently operating in St. Andrews. One is Eastern Charlotte Waterways, ECW, Project Village Car Share, and two is the Carry Ride Share. For these services to be legally offered in the territorial limits of the town of St. Andrews, council would need to authorize them via motion. Staff have consulted with legal, and the opinion was that council can approve via motion. Staff are recommending approval of both services until December 31st, 2024, so staff can prepare either a new bylaw for rideshare services or add to the vehicular bylaw. And the motion before us is that the council of the town of St. Andrews authorizes Eastern Charlotte Waterways under the Project Village Car Share program to operate within the municipal limits as outlined under the Motor Vehicle Act of New Brunswick 197.1 until December 31st, 2024, and I so move.
Thank you. Seconder. Got Councillor Blanchard. Discussion on this one. Thank you, Councillor Ware, for bringing this forward so we were aware that this needed to be done. So all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? That's no one. It's been carried. Next motion.
This motion is that the council of the town of St. Andrews authorizes Carry Rideshare to operate within the municipal limits as outlined under the Motor Vehicle Act of New Brunswick 197.1 until December 31st, 2024, and I so move.
Once again, seconder. Ooh, there's like a bunch. I think Councillor Neal won that one. Pretty much the same. All in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That's everybody. That has been carried. And we are, speaking of carry, moving along. Councillor Hurdle. Oh, so Councillor Ware, I guess this one is. It says both. I'm confused. Top of Hurdle. Where, I guess this one is.
EBC 240605, Carry Rideshare proposal for St. Andrews. Carry is a PEI-based rideshare startup that has seen success in expanding services to rural areas in the Maritimes. They currently began services in the St. Stephen area with financial assistance from future St. Stephen, and were queried about offering services in St. Andrews. Fee-for-service is app-based and much like the better-known Uber or Lyft. And I'll add a comment there that is identical. Uber and Lyft both sell their software to these companies. Operating in large centers in PEI, the feasibility of a small population like ours is undermined. However, they are willing to pilot it over 5 months. They're looking for council to support to commit $18,000 plus HST for 18 weeks of operation, which represents 1/3 of the cost. Please see the attached staff report and proposal for more details. And the motion reads that the council of the town of St. Andrews agrees to an 18-week pilot project with Carry Ride Share, which includes a financial contribution of $18,000 plus HST to come out of the economic development budget. I so move.
Okay, can I have a seconder then for that motion? Councillor Neal, I think I have to get it out on the table. Council discussion on this one. I know we had concerns about the amount and also the funding, and there's also comments in the past the Regional Service Commission should be leading transportation in the region. And we asked for more detail and did get a little bit of more of a breakdown, which talked a little bit about kind of with the money that we spent for marketing. I believe it was like about $5K. I don't know if I don't think it's in this package. It was in a previous one, right? But Council, over to you. Councillor Ware.
Yes, even though I made the motion, I have to sort of speak against the amount. we did get some numbers. I didn't think they were overly sophisticated. Just some numbers put on a sheet of paper. And I think it's a fairly substantial cost. It obviously is not going to benefit the local population much because the cost of the fares are rather high. I understand. I haven't used it, and that's just what I've heard. So, you know, I think it should be a smaller amount, and perhaps it should come out of our portion of the tourism levy that we collect each year as opposed to economic development.
So, Councillor Ware, I actually personally saw it the same way you did. I actually, with the breakdown, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I should. Was it $5,000 for like marketing and awareness? Is that what we had? Was that the number I recall seeing? To me, I thought just it's a large amount of money, $5,000, but that could come out of the tourism promotion that we collect through the levy, so we can educate people on the service. And it being successful, it is an offering. It's important to note that if I want to go downtown from here, it's $7.50. So if it's raining, that's a pretty good offer. I'm having a few drinks and not so much going down, but if I'm going up the hill to Algonquin, that would be probably after dinner would be a good thing. I do think it ends around 10 p.m. though, which is a bit of a barrier still right now if you're out at the Rossmount or something like that. But I do see merit in having this service available since we don't have transportation. So the number 5,000 jumped out at me just because that's what it said it was for awareness and marketing, and that's something that I think that council should consider supporting. 18,000 is a lot, and it's important to note that they've already been operating for over a month now, right? So without the funding, right? So, council, over to you, though. That was just an opinion of mine that matched Councillor Ware's. Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship and Council. The only concern that I have is I look after a few elderly people, and this is an app, and it won't work for them. They can't see the app, they don't understand the app, etc. If it had a call-in, it would be much better. However, unfortunately, it's like Uber. You have to be quite educated. You have to be quite savvy in your apps. And that's the only problem I see. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you. I think there's not that it will necessarily solve that, because that was a concern that we did talk about, but I've got to wonder if the Senior Resource Center here couldn't be a champion in helping educate people on how to use that as well, how to download it, how to use it. But yes, technology barrier, especially people that don't have cell phones, which there is still a number of people that don't, it does make it a lot tougher for sure. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. I guess the way I'm looking at this is I'm kind of looking to them to explain to me how it's feasible, and I think they're looking to the town to see if it's feasible. And I think from my point of view, I'm sort of stuck in that space. So if Carrie believes this is that there is ground here to expand a business, I'm wondering if perhaps we could look at this in terms of a loan. If it's $18,000 over 5 years, they pay that back over a 5-year period of time, I'd be a lot more willing to do it. If they think that this is a business that can grow and expand, they'd be making money. At least we wouldn't be taking it out of the taxpayer's pocket over the long term. And if they are successful over that time period, we get the money back. I wonder if that's a possibility for us.
I guess we'd have to go back to them. That currently wasn't on the table at the time. I guess, again, as a pilot program, it's going to take time. And talking to St. Stephen, they know it's going to take time to build, and whether it's sufficient to build that they could, that they'll make enough profits in the future to pay for the pilot program, I can't speak to that. And again, they were invited by St. Stephen to come down, just to see if it was viable, essentially, and that's what we're looking for here too. But I can certainly ask them, but I guess we've kicked this around a little bit, so they'd be a little bit disappointed. So I think they'd be more happy at a lower loan than a lower grant than a higher loan. But that is me trying to read the tea leaves at this point.
Councillor Harland.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. So I just wanted to clarify, are you suggesting that instead of the 18,000 that we provide them 5,000 for promotional material or promotion?
Correct. I would just amend the motion from 18 to 5, and in the justification, it doesn't have to be attached, but they said that they were going to be spending about $5,000. of marketing so people are aware it's in the community. Like, for example, I know that there's a screen at the Algonquin, for example, that rotates through. I don't know if they plan to be on that, but it gives them a bit of a budget to make the program successful, educate people, because we all know about it, but I still think there's a small percentage of people that actually know about the program.
Oh, absolutely.
So I'd rather, like, the fact that we're collecting tourism dollars for product development is one of the big things of why tourism development. This is definitely a tourism development service. This would be lovely to have in the community. Whether there be a barrier on the way that they did it, there's no other proposal. So that's where I'm betting. And it is tax dollars because it is collected, but it's not necessarily, if we take it from that fund, from the residents, it's from the visitors.
Right.
And this would benefit to the point. I think locals could use it, but I think primarily tourists would probably use this the most. Yeah, I'll go to you and then I'll go back. Yep.
I think when I looked at the Kerry information, they really were indicating that it could be used by residents as well, right? Or that the intention, somebody needing to have a ride to get to an appointment or whatever. I guess what I'm unclear about, and this is my neglect on my part, is I didn't go back to the Kerry information in preparation for this meeting to see what else the breakdown of the information that they provided us. Did they indicate how that what else that $18,000 was needed for? Because that's pretty fuzzy in my head.
So the big cost, I don't have it before me, but I know that the insurance is very high because they pay the insurance. But the other thing is that they want to guarantee a service level. So like Uber, if you're an Uber driver, you can just turn the app on when you want to work, you just turn it off. They don't want that, so that way you have a consistent service. They have someone who's basically getting paid like they're on call, and then that way the app will always be available because there's not that many drivers.
Right.
So if we ran like an Uber system, we could basically on a long weekend, have no drivers available on Kerry. By having this money and paying them kind of that on call, it's guaranteed that when you click on it, there'll be the app will be available for you on those operating hours. That was the main justification. Probably wasn't all of it, but that's what I remember from their numbers.
That's correct. They want to guarantee a certain level of income for the drivers in order for it to even get it off the ground. Whereas in bigger centers, it's all commission-based, as you indicated. So when you fly into an airport and take a Lyft or an Uber, they're just getting paid for that ride.
Thank you.
Councilor Ware? Now go to Councilor Blanchard after that. Sorry, Councilor Blanchard.
Yeah, I had the same amount in mind as you did, $5,000 for the marketing startup of it. One other thing on the seniors, when you register for the app, and I haven't done it, my son uses it all the time, all over the country, you got to put your credit card in. The whole thing has to be set up ahead of time. And, a lot of the seniors, some don't have a credit card, but I feel $5,000 is a tidy sum of money for any small business that's starting up, and they should be, maybe not be ecstatic, but they should be happy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Councilor Blanchard.
Thanks. They talked about the 18,000 being a third of the cost to operate for that period of time for that pilot program, right? So we're now proposing a third of the operating costs that we would cover to bring a program into St. Andrews on a pilot. It's a pilot project. We've identified transportation in the area for a long time as an issue, and again, as we recognize, there are a number of different demographics that utilize or would need or would require that transportation for different reasons. I don't think this hits all those demographics, but it would definitely hit some. I like the idea of the 5,000 coming out of the tourism the levy. I don't see why we couldn't designate a portion of the 18,000 as what we would identify as a promotion tourism type thing. That could come out of that, and then the remaining 13,000 would be covered by the town. I do feel like if that, we've looked at a number of different transportation options, and they've been few and far between. If something does show up on our door, if there are opportunities, and again, we don't have anybody beating down our door to provide transportation services, but this would fill a gap. It wouldn't cover everything, but it would serve a need in our community. And I think if we're gonna try and get these things in, we need to be prepared to pony up some of the costs. And to previous speakers, to Councillor Bennett in particular, who did talk about this as a regional thing, transportation, I 100% agree with that as well. But we could be waiting a long time for those services to happen. So in the meantime, I think this is an opportunity. It's a trial thing. It's not gonna, we're not invested for forever here. It's a trial basis. I think 5,000 from the levy is a good option. I think the remaining 13,000, if we want things like this to happen, I think we need to be prepared to put up some money as well. So I'm okay with the 18, with 5 of it coming. If we could amend to have 5,000 coming from the tourism levy, I think I would be okay with that. Thank you.
Okay, so we got 2 different lines right now. It's important to note too that you don't really have to do the 5. You could just say 50% of the time tourists will be using the service. You could go 9 and 9. There's no reason why you couldn't go that route. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you. Just
try to get consensus. So here.
Well, yeah. The way that I'm thinking about this now is that I've got family members with mobility issues that don't live in the community. When they come to visit, sometimes getting downtown can be a challenge because if I'm 2 or 3 blocks from downtown, I don't necessarily want to drive down and park. But for them to walk down is difficult. This would provide an option for us to call somebody up. They come and get us, bring us downtown, take us home again. So it's really, I think, a really good step when it comes to mobility and getting people around. I think this is something we definitely need. But again, it does speak more to tourists. And in that said, one of the things I guess would be a concern is if we're up and running for September, are we really hitting the key ridership area to do a pilot from September, October, November, December? Or should we then in turn actually look for next summer?
See, that's the thing. It's actually running right now.
Okay.
See, it's been going on for from the minute that we got our first pretty much the first time we talked about it, they announced that they were coming here. And they've been running now for probably close to 2 months. Maybe not quite, but
yeah, over it was around Canada, before Canada Day.
Yeah, it's been over a month for sure.
Do we have any data from that at all?
I haven't yet. I don't have any. I don't know if staff does.
Not yet, no. But they only provide incremental data to the Future St. Stephen. I found it's still a business, I guess, at the end of the day. But they'll give us some idea.
From my understanding, though, when they presented is St. Stephen was close to being feasible on its own. So what they're hoping to do is just do the same here. And there's reasons to believe, just based on, the electric car out front here, that our usership is more than all the other cars combined. I've got to think with the tourist base we have here that if this app was to work anywhere, it would work in St. Andrews. If it was going to work anywhere in Charlotte County. I would say at the end of the 18-month pilot, if they still need to be subsidized, I'd say it's not going to work. 18-week rather, sorry. Did I say 18-month? That'd be even better, eh? Yeah. All right, Council. So I've heard a few different things. I've heard the full amount, and we could talk about the breakdown of that after. How many would like to go? Let's go with the 5,000 and 18,000 and just get consensus from council there. Does that make sense? Because those are the 2 numbers I've kind of heard from this table. How many would like to go 18,000 towards this? Yeah. Okay. I'm getting 4. So that would be majority. So 2 that would prefer the 5, or maybe Councillor Bennett 0. Is that would be safe to say for you, or is it 5? Or
no, thank you, Your Worship. Thank you for considering.
Yeah.
And I haven't weighed in yet. I do concur that this certainly, for anybody who's going to use it, is going to benefit. Anybody potentially can benefit everybody in the community. I do believe that the money should come from RSC level, because that is the mandated provider for rural transportation. And taking into consideration, like Councillor Blanchard's comments about how if we wait for them, we could get old, a lot older than we are today. So in the name of being reasonable, the idea of supporting it, but supporting it through the TAL versus out of the tax base, I would be in support of that method. And whatever the number that the rest of council agrees with, I would agree with that, as long as the funds come from the TAL and not from the tax base. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. So we have 4 though for the 18,000. So let's talk the breakdown. Yeah, I think at the bare minimum going 9 and 9 makes sense because, you know, residents can use this, but so too can visitors, and that's just splitting it between the two. Does that? I've seen a lot of head nods. Does everyone just show of hands out of the 4, or anyone that now knows that council wants has decided 18,000? How many think it should be split evenly between the two, 9 and 9? If we are to, all right, so that's the majority. So council, we are going. Do we need to amend that? Okay, council. So we're going to amend that the council of the town of St. Andrews agrees to an 18-week pilot project with Kerry Rideshare, which includes a financial contribution of 18,000 plus HST to be divided equally between the economic development budget and the TALB collection budget, short-term accommodation levy budget. How about that? Okay. Can I have a mover for that? I've got Councillor Blanchard, seconded. Got Councillor Hurdle. We kind of had discussion, but formality. Okay, all in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye. The amendment has been accepted. Now we're back to the motion.
Sorry, we have to do, you've got your amendment, so raise your hands again. So we've got it, we had one.
Sorry. I think, and yeah, that's
okay.
Unanimous.
Unanimous, okay. Didn't see all the hands.
No,
Thank you.
I was quick on that one. Thank you for that. And okay, so now we're back. Any more discussion? Okay, call the question. All in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. And opposed? 1 opposed. Thank you, council. I really appreciate that. It was good to work through that. Next one is going to be Councillor Ware. I guess we should get it at the table. I guess to lead this off, council, just because I can't actually move, I just ask you, and I don't mean to overstep, but ask you to think about tabling this motion when it comes forward. And I know you can read it, but the reason being is this bylaw, we do have to address some of the concerns within it, but this bylaw that we're about to read, it talks about adding a number of food trucks to the downtown, and whether you support that or you don't, it's the busiest time of year for the competing restaurants right now. I haven't had a chance to talk to the BIA about it because they're not meeting this time of year. I don't know if anyone's gone to the chamber. I just think that if we're going to bring this forward and set a hearing of objections right after the long weekend of September, I just don't think it's fair to a lot of businesses that contribute to our community. And the fact that this bylaw, by the time it's implemented anyway, is not going to be for this tourism season, why would we not hold this back a month? So that way when we set the hearing of objections, it's in October, or even 2 months where it's in November, where these people that are running their business, it's owner operated downtown, they'll have an opportunity. I'll have an opportunity to get before the BIA and tell them about it, make them aware of it. I just before you go, and again, I might be overstepping. I just wanted to consider that because it's a really busy time of year for them. It's the busiest time of year right now. It was a monster weekend in town, and probably the last thing that they really know about right now is something that might have impact on their businesses. So, council, over to you. Councillor Ware.
Okay, reference number EBC 240804. Bylaw number 24-03, a bylaw regulating the licensing of peddlers, buskers, and transient traders, first reading. And rather than put the motion on the table, I'll make a motion to table this until September 2024.
Do I have a seconder for that? Do we have to read it to table it, or are you good with that? Okay, I got Councillor Heenan. Discussion on the tabling. Again, just by the time we go through 3 readings, it's not going to happen this tourism season anyway. Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship. I would also like to see this bylaw be represented in 3 separate votes by council. One for the buskers, one for the peddlers, and one for the food trailers. Because if you don't agree with one, you have to down the whole thing. And it should be that we have an opportunity, Your Worship, to be able to vote for buskers, peddlers, and food truck. Thank you.
Okay, so what we'd probably do then, because then we could break down every bylaw like that, and it'd be very difficult. What we'd probably do is just, when we bring it up, we would actually just, the items that you want to change or go different, then we would try to adjust it by amending it versus the 3 separate votes. Because imagine like trying to pass the municipal plan with 76 different, you know what I mean? I see what you're saying, But I think the way to do that is through 3 readings of actually trying to make amendments. And if you don't like it, you do unfortunately vote down the entire bylaw. But I hear exactly what you're saying. And it's important to note.
Your Worship, just to remind Councillor Heenan too, that you can amend complete sections of the particular bylaw. So you might on first reading say, well, I don't agree with the peddler section, so I'd like to wipe it out or amend it substantially. That's all fine. So it doesn't really remove your democratic ability by combining it. It just makes it a little easier from enforcement purposes to keep it combined.
Thank you. So, Councillor Ware, were you moving to table both motions, though, just to be clear?
Yes.
And you were seconding that, Councillor Heenan, both motions?
Your Worship, just one question. Would you like staff to go out to the Chamber, the BIA, and Explore St. Andrews now with what's been presented to Council to get their feedback now, so we can bring that back to you before first reading, so you have that information, or do you want to wait till after?
Just say that we tabled it because we know it's their busy time of year, but we want them to be aware of it. I think that would be a good way, but I'm hoping the BIA meets, and Councillor Hurdle, I know it's during the day. I don't know if you're catching many of the Chamber, but they probably want to weigh in on this, one way or another. I see, a lot of dialogue happening, but I see an opportunity, especially the Monday, Tuesday in the community. There's not enough places open, but I pictured those locations more like the arena that's proposed in it. Maybe Katie's Cove, maybe, you know what I mean? Like, that's how I pictured it versus right downtown where they are and paying high taxes to be down there. That's really the concern. Councillor Harlan.
Thank you. I was surprised by that. I didn't know why we were including particularly food trucks in the downtown core. I really thought it would be something sort of outside of the core. Loved the idea of it being up here. We don't even mention down by the point or Katie's Cove, which is a great idea.
I'm full of great ideas.
So I don't know if it obviously we can't make amendments now. We can't. No.
Through you, Your Worship, but with being bumped a month, if council has ideas or concepts you would like to bring forward, contact staff. We're happy to look and redraft, because I think that's kind of the purpose of going back out to the BIA Chamber and everybody, see what their comments, because somebody actually came in from the Chamber and BIA today to talk about this.
Right.
So like they had comments, concerns, and so this would give both council and those groups an opportunity to gather first. Then we can come back and look at a redrafted version with some of the comments or maybe direction from council at that point.
And that's where it came from me. A business owner came forward and just said, right now I'm running on fumes. I don't have an ability to come in and to go to other businesses as well, is what they said. So that's great, council. I think maybe when we talk about priorities for the staff-led work session, I think maybe putting this towards the front so we have a more detailed conversation.
That'd be great.
That might be a good spot to do that.
That'd be great.
Yeah. All right, so I got a mover and a seconder to table these. I will call the question. All in favor of tabling them, please signify by saying aye. Thank you, council, for that. I really appreciate it. And we are moving ahead now to the community assistance grant request, and that is which councillor? It is Councillor Ware. It's busy tonight.
EBC 240803, Community Assistant Grant Request for the St. Andrews Arts Council Choral Festival. The town of St. Andrews has received a Community Assistant Grant request from the St. Andrews Arts Council for the upcoming Choral Fest, October 4th to 6th, 2024. Please see the attached application for more details. St. Andrews Arts Council was supported with a $2,000 community assistance grant in 2024. The funding extended to programs like Whale of Tale Theater, New Brunswick Keyboard Festival, Music in the Schools, Serenades for Seniors, and Summer School for the Performing Arts. The Choral Festival is not a requested program for support in their original application. They are seeking $500 in support. The town has $3,100, I assume, remaining in their assistance grant fund for 2024. The motion is that the Council of Town St. Andrews supports the St. Andrews Arts Council with the donation of $500 for Corals Fest, October 4th to 6th, 2024. I so move.
Seconder for that one. Good, Councillor Heenan. Discussion. I guess a question for staff is Explore St. Andrews not doing, are they out of money for grants for this year? Are they still doing it just because it referenced that singers are coming from across the province to come here? It feels like a festival, or it's just a little bit of a slippery slope is all I'm saying.
Well, I think, to be honest, Your Worship, I can't remember if they give out their grants early in the year in order to allow the programs to get going, right? So a lot of them rely on, to be able to execute their event or activities, they rely on it. Marketing, promotion, I don't remember, but I can't say for sure. I don't think the Arts Council was on that list. The only other thing in this, we discourage in the past the same group coming back for a second dip. I'm not saying it's not worthy. We have the funds left, but you may see some additional people coming back, groups that have already gotten some, now that they know there's a little bit left in the pool. But I'm okay either way. It's I don't like to use the word precedent, but it isn't a common practice to give twice in the same year.
No, and again, like music in the schools or for local children, serenades or seniors, that's for people in our community. It just feels a little different is my only point. But it is a public concert that is available at the end of this workshop. So it's not just the students that are coming here. There is a public concert. And so council, over to you. Any more questions or comments? Councillor Blanchard.
Do we have a sense with this how many people it would bring into town, like a festival like this? To me, it's sort of like an economic development thing as well. If we're if we're bringing more people into the town in sort of the shoulder season, again, it might be worthwhile. I'm just
60 vocalists come, and then there's a public concert at the Anglican Church.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Council, then, any more comments? Otherwise, I'll call the question. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Okay, that's everybody. That's been carried. All right, that brings us to a discussion on the Legion banner request. I think I'll pass it over to staff for this one.
Okay, I'll jump on. As you know, Council, last year, I think was the first year for the Legion to do the banners along the poles in St. Andrews, which is a common program in many of the municipalities now throughout New Brunswick. I think it might have been actually started by St. George in the day, but it has carried through to many in the region. So they're asking for an additional 20 banners for 2024. And so there's really two costs we're looking at. It's the cost of, somebody will pay for the banners, families will support the banners, but they ask for us to install them and to pay for the brackets that to put them up. And so it generally takes two staff members to run up and do these banners, and they really need a scissor lift to do it. So there's a couple of $1,000, $2,300 each time they rent it for 2 or 3 days. Part of that cost is it's got to be floated from St. Stephen up here. And then after they've set up for the 4 to 6 weeks, they have to rent it again to bring them down. And so the total cost is estimated around $6,800. But if you take out, we included the staff setup costs in that, but even taking those out, it's still around $5,000 in additional dollars to do the banner pole program. We're not saying it's not worthy, and we just wanted to bring it. It wasn't put into our budget, and we just wanted to bring it to your attention that it's a good project, but it is a fairly costly one to be able to execute on top of their other duties as well.
I think the challenge on this is it's just a one-time, fairly low fee, and as it should be, you're remembering veterans. But the thing is if we buy in the brackets and we're putting them up and taking them down, it's more and more time. And the question is how many, like. Yeah, and every veteran deserves to be on a pole. I'm not saying that. It's just at the end of the day, it's just there is financial considerations that the municipality isn't receiving any funds for this, and the more we buy, is the longer it's going to take of staff when they have other competing priorities that need to be done within the community, right? So I think that's the point you're trying to probably make. Council, I just wonder if there wasn't an opportunity, like we lost so many trees in the community during the storms this year. I don't know if there's an opportunity to do, for veterans, memorial trees and have a little plaque on the bottom of it in memory of them and get more trees back in the community, because we lost so many. But again, over to you. If we want to keep doing brackets, it's possible that we just keep extending it, and the cost is what it is, and we get into the operating budget of the town of St. Andrews, it's factored in, because I was a big believer in getting this program established, especially around Remembrance Day in the month of November. I think it's the right thing to do, but with that being said, is if it's just a one-time fee, there's ongoing costs that go on for years after it that have to be budgeted properly for. Mr. Spear.
Thank you, Worship. It's something that, following up on your recommendation or your suggestion about the veteran trees, is that we were looking at the new trail that is running from the Harry Mallory Sports Field all the way to the Bar Road. And we were looking at replanting. As you know, they had to cut quite a big swath to do that. And at the time, we were looking at a grant, and I think Terry had said there's 200 trees that could be planted along there. It may be an opportunity to create like some type of veterans walk along that section with the plaques and potential trees, and even potential for benches and different things like that. Certain levels of giving. If the Legion, I think we'd have to go back to them to see if they feel that's worthwhile. But on the flip side, that's something that combination of lasts forever, but also is up all year or most of the year, so people would have an opportunity to see it all the time.
Could almost call it a Trail of Heroes or something and name that section. I just, to get mature trees, there is a cost associated with them. And what a great way to do it versus a banner that's up for 3 weeks that will get eventually weather. And not that a plaque won't, but you could have a little image of the person on the plaque, and maybe even a small write-up on what they did. Like there's potential there for a program as well. It's just kind of that line of thinking. Councillor Bennett.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. And first of all, I think it's important that I note that I'm not a member of the Legion here, or a Legion. So my comments, I guess, are mine, even though I am a retired soldier and a veteran. Those banners and the poles aren't just used strictly for the Veterans Remembrance Day banners. They're also used for the high school graduates. So does that mean, like, if we're costing the salaries for the employees and renting a scissor lift, does that mean that, like, the school is going to be told that if they want their banners put up for the high school kids next fall or next spring, sorry, that they're going to have to come up with the money for that? Are we going to cost their expenses and every other request that comes in front of us? Are we going to break it down like this? Because there's even additional there's additional requests further on in our package here tonight that there was no costing done. So I'm kind of at odds about why this was costed out this way by the man hours and stuff. We get a lot of requests throughout the year to put up tents, to block off roads, to move bleachers, to set up for venues in the name of tourism and bring people into our community and stuff. And I haven't seen anything costed. So I'm really kind of at odds on why this is costed and broken down the way it is.
So,
and
yep,
thank you, Your Worship. I also would like to know, have we rented the Genie lift to do this activity in the past, or has it been something that simply a ladder has been used to put the banners up and take them down and whatnot? To me, like, yes, this is an extravagant expense, $6,800. That is a big expense. We just had a long discussion over $500 for the last venue. So I take $6,800 very serious, and I think every dollar that we spend here I take extremely serious. But if I could have a couple of answers on about why a scissor lift is needed now versus when I don't believe it has been in the past, and why this is costed and not other requests are costed. If you could answer those, please.
So the first thing is the high school graduation is 20 to 25 people. This is going to be over 100 banners, so it's a significantly bigger project. To be perfectly honest, they can usually do the high school stuff in a morning or a day. the other one, they did use a scissor lift last year. It'll take longer. That's all the scissor lift is, more efficient. But it just means that it'll take up to a couple of weeks then for guys to go in a ladder and be going up and down. It's not the safest thing either, the height of those things, but it can be done.
I think to break that down, though, I think the reason it's being costed, so to answer your question on use of the high school, is that's a set number that we have enough of these brackets for. But as this program continues to expand, all staff's doing is notify us that there is a cost with that as we continue to expand it. So if we're going to continue to expand it, great. Like, those people deserve to be on poles, like I said. It's just come budget time, we're going to have to expect that number to continue to increase as well because there's more banners, right? And they have to budget for the brackets every year. And it's a good fundraiser for the Legion for sure, right? But it's just that, the municipality has a cost associated that is growing when the ones for the high school is pretty set, right? There's not 100 and they're not asking for 20 more brackets. Like, that's the difference. It's just a growing program.
Please, and if I could just correct something here. So currently there's 65 poles up right now. And what they're asking for is an additional 20. So that would break it up to 85, not over 100. And yes, it certainly is expanding, but it's only the second year. And it's not just for veterans, it's also for our RCMP friends and families that live in this community, have lived in the community in the past. Now, as well, and I'm pretty sure I remember last year the request that the Legion paid for the poles themselves, the 660 for the banner poles.
So, for clarification, that was a request from the town to pay for the extra brackets and banner poles. So we had a limited number that they had, and they wanted to hit the 65 mark. So any additional banner brackets were purchased, and it was, I think we had to purchase 30 additional ones. So we were talking $1,000 approximately for those purchases.
Thank you for that clarification. And for this, and especially because this is a bit of a fundraiser for them as well, I certainly would go back and say, if you want the banner poles put up, the cost of the banner poles themselves should be incurred by the Legion. And I was in contact with the president of the local Legion here today, and I asked him, I said, I talked about, them coming up with the $660, and he said it's not something that he could discuss because he didn't have the authority to spend it without a vote from their membership. But I don't think it's unreasonable to ask them to share that cost of the actual cost of the goods. And especially where they have in the past, I think it certainly shows that they're certainly willing to participate in the expenses. And not only that, there's something else, and if you want, we can table this to a later date. But if the genie lift or the scissor lift is going to be an expense of about $5,000 roughly to get here, maybe this is a good opportunity for us to go to that provider and ask if maybe they can reduce their rate for us because of what this is and what it's for. There's lots of ways that we can deal with this, and I understand that our local workers probably don't want to climb a ladder 13 feet in the air, 13 feet 2 inches actually. I measured it just before the council meeting here, especially times 20. So maybe there's other ways we can get around it to save a few dollars to make this much more reasonable for our tax base. But it's certainly something that I think that we should do everything possible to support this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bennett. Councillor Heenan.
I may be wrong on this, Mr. Spear and your worship, but I thought we had requested the breakdown for the money at the last time we talked about this, which was about a month ago or a month and a half ago. We requested to see what it was broken down, and what the breakdown was for the amounts, I believe was part of our meeting, correct? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll look to the clerk for that one.
Staff-led meeting, there was a request for a breakdown. As well, your worship, just to note within the report, they are wondering if there is a cutoff number for banners and what the town's...
And I think that's the purpose of it too, would be to determine, is it a limit, and then we do a different program, right? Like that's what it comes down to. Councillor Harland.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. So I think I'm concerned that it may be, in terms of timing, I feel that we're at a bit of a standstill in terms of this year. I would really like to see us explore and engage with the Legion in some conversation around either alternatives or additions to how we recognize our veterans. The idea that was presented in terms of the trail system and the planting of trees and identifying the plaque, I really like that idea. I would like to have staff engage with the Legion in that discussion. I think it is a more permanent, it becomes a fixture of our town, and I really like that idea, and I would like to have their feedback around that. In terms of going forward, we've had a request for the 20 additional brackets this year. I would like to support that. I think it's reasonable if they've purchased the brackets before that we make that request to the Legion again for that for the payment of that amount. But for this year, I think we need to proceed.
Thank you. So, Councilor Zane, go ahead, Councilor Blanchard.
Sorry, can I just ask a quick question? Where we're renting scissor lifts, and I assume there'd be multiple uses perhaps around town. What's the cost of actually purchasing the town owning its own scissor lift as opposed to rental?
You'll find out at budget time, because I said, well, if we're going to be doing this, we might as well look at, but it's expensive. It'll be in the, probably 100 to 150 minimum.
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, there. Okay, Council. Councilor Hurl.
Just as a clarification, the last point, is that like a boom lift or it's just a scissor lift?
What's that?
Would that be a boom lift costing that much or a scissor lift? Like, cause
it's a good question. I think that was a boom lift, which had more use.
Okay. Okay, that makes a lot more sense.
But
yeah.
even a scissor lift, I think, was still 50 to 70.
Okay.
Do you think the other option, to Councilor Bennett's point, is there is some contractors like Harbortown Builders were just here, for example. I know they have one. Maybe there's a local contractor that would like to be a sponsor of the program or something like that and provide some option at a lower cost. There's, to Councilor Bennett's points, there could be ways, hopefully, around that to reduce cost. But what I'm hearing today is that we'll proceed. They should. We're hoping the Legion, they're the one raising money, will also contribute to the brackets. But this will be revisited. But for this year, we're fine with the additional brackets, if that makes sense. That's what I'm kind of hearing here. Does that make sense to everybody?
And the additional 20. I think they already had 20 more, so are available.
20 more, yeah, just to proceed. Keeping in mind that we understand that other things during that time period may fall down in the priority list, right? Does that make sense to everybody? That's kind of what I heard without hearing it. All right. We are past the Legion. Now we're getting into the Lighthouse project, which is Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. This is in reference to EBC 240806, and the subject is a donation to the Pendlebury Lighthouse project. The background is the town of St. Andrews has received a donation request from the St. Andrews Civic Trust regarding the restoration project for the Pendlebury Lighthouse. Due to the last 2 years of storms, there has been damage to the land and lighthouse, and maybe after the tropical depression this weekend, possibly too. Please see the attached letter from Barbie Smith, president of the SACT. They are aiming to raise $150,000, not only to fund critical restorations for the lighthouse, but to fortify the surrounds of the lighthouse to protect it from future storms. In discussions with council, a $5,000 amount was suggested as a donation. And the motion before us is the council of the town of St. Andrews supports the St. Andrews Civic Trust Pendlebury Lighthouse Restoration Project with a donation of $5,000. And I'll move this.
Seconder for and Councillor Harland has. So, council, over to this one. It is a Civic Trust asset, but one of the most photographed kind of tourist places in our community. $150,000 is a lot for not-for-profit to raise. We do have a tourism accommodation levy that is for such things. So over you, if you want to go ahead with this, or of course we could amend it for less or more, or leave it as is. Councillor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. Just a question for staff around the surrounds for the lighthouse. There's obviously, it's clear that there's been a significant amount of damage to it. Is any of that on our radar as a town to repair? And if so, is there a schedule for it?
Again, at budget time, the cost of some of that stuff's fairly substantial, so any safety issues have been addressed this year with replacement of planks or anywhere there's some undermining. But the boardwalk was in conjunction with the Civic Trust of the day was installed by the town, paid by a contractor, or a contractor to do it. I'm going to guess 2008, 2009, I believe. I'd have to look that up. And so it'll have to be reviewed. As you know, that end of Patrick Street was under substantial amounts of water 2 or 3 times January, February, so it's going to have to be revisited for sure.
As an extension of that thought, would it make sense that, I mean, there are plans for the point for sea level mitigation, sea level rise mitigation. Would it be sensible to think that there's going to have to be a mitigation plan for this part of the town as well? Down the road, 10, 20 years?
So actually, I attended a recent climate action seminar last week that actually talked about some new programs that are coming out for communities that are on coastal lines to do full natural and gray infrastructure programs or design projects. So I'm actually doing research into what funds are available and what programs there can be, because they'll tailor a project and a program strictly for what our use is. So it would help both private and public landowners, and it's a pretty good conglomeration of like Climate Action New Brunswick and MBEN. There's a number of groups out of Halifax that are all part of this climate action group. So I'm doing some more research to find out what we can get out of it.
To that effect, would it make more sense then for us to pursue possibly tabling this until we have more idea of what funding might exist?
That would be more for studies to see what needs to be done. I think for what's being requested here is more for their fundraising, what they could do to do repairs, but I don't think it negates us from looking at the whole community coastline for study and project.
And is it a safe assumption that this will be the debate between municipal versus private protection? Because we can shore up the front of this, but the reality is down there it'll just go around it and come in from behind. So shoring up the front of this probably won't mitigate it. We would have to have private property also, either by their investment or the municipal or other levels of government, I should say, because it will work. That spot it will work around pretty easily. We saw it in the storms.
But if Your Worship, just to add a secondary thought to that, is sometimes, when we think of mitigation, we think of building a great big wall to prevent from the water from flowing over, but sometimes it's just building smart to make it resilient to the change. So, for instance, and I don't know, but let's pretend I'm an engineer for a minute. We've got a bunch of wooden boardwalk there. Maybe it's to replace it with a steel system that can withstand the pressures of the tides, for instance, and easier to repair than what's currently there. Kind of the same discussions we're having with the wharf.
Well, I think that's precisely the point I'm trying to make, is that, I'm not discounting the need for the fundraising and the need to restore, to repair. I just worry about taking a Band-Aid approach right now if another winter comes through like we had last winter. I mean,
it's like the end of Bar Road. Like, you can fix it, but if you don't do it right, you can lose it. Yeah,
so
I hear your point for sure.
Well, it's somewhat complicated too, because the Pinnaberry Lighthouse is a heritage thing, and without rebuilding it or lifting it or something that's beyond the scope of this project, it's going to always be susceptible to a certain extent. I think it's fair to say, though, they probably won't be starting the work this fall. It's going to take them a while to fundraise, and so by this spring we'll get a better idea if last year was a fluke or it's going to be the new normal, and they may have to rethink what type of restoration they do in order to ensure that it lasts for more than 2 or 3 years.
Councillor Ware, then I'll go back to you.
Yeah, I guess I just got a quick question on it. They're in the process of a fundraising drive. When do they intend to spend this money?
If you write them a check of $150,000 tomorrow, they'd probably be willing to spend it tomorrow. But that's what I was trying to say earlier, that they're going to be fundraising. It's $50,000 for phase 1. It wouldn't surprise me if they could have that done by the end of September, early October. This is me talking, not them, by the way. I haven't asked a question, but just knowing the town and some of the support it gets, which means they'll probably try to do some preventative restoration over the winter or in the fall, seeing the winter and then doing their actual repairs early next spring is what I'd guess. But if I can reach out to the president, Barbie Smith, and see what they think their timeline is and provide that to council this week.
Yeah, no, Councillor Harlan and I went to a fundraiser last month. I think they made about $9,000, that $8 to $9,000 for sure. So they're chipping away at it, but So that's a big target to get to and the other thing too is, pretty soon Civic Trust is gonna be getting back to us at the courthouse, so they have taken on some consultation for us as well that we paid more than $5,000 for the previous time, so. Over to you, Council, on what you wanted to do, Councillor Heenan.
Your Worship, I have absolutely no problem in the $5,000 towards the lighthouse because I think it's a heritage project and I think it's important to the town. The only question that I have is if they do raise the $150,000, is it going to be washed out again? And I mean, that's Councillor Hurdle's basically what he said. And I have absolutely no problem in showing that the town does support it. So don't get me wrong, I'm telling it right now. The problem I have is they can go to all this effort. And if one tide comes in and takes out the $150,000 worth of work that they've done, I mean, they're back to square one. That's my only problem. It's kind of like putting the cart before the horse. In some respects, it's like, you have to restore it, but yet, is it going to make it final? That's a question. We don't have a crystal ball. Anyway, I wanted to air those. Thanks.
Mr. Spear had something you want to add?
Yeah, just really quick, Your Worship. I think it's worth noting that when they restored this project, I think around the early 2000s, climate change was discussed but really wasn't acknowledged at the time. And now it is, it's a reality, especially that the thing was damaged because of climate change. So knowing the current board, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Alan Fyander's on that board, I think, who's an engineer, and that'll be on their top priority to try to figure out how to make sure this thing isn't raised 50 and it gets washed out in one good gale.
Okay, Council. Do you want me to call the question on the 5,000? Okay. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Okay, and all opposed? Okay, that's everybody. So that is from the tourism accommodation levy, correct?
That wasn't in the motion.
Sorry, Council, just quick consensus on that. I assume that it would be because it's a tourism product in our community. Does that work for you?
Sure.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. We are switching portfolios now. We are going to Recreation and Environment Committee, which would be Michelle, so it'd be Councillor Blanchard going through them all.
Thank you. So reference number RE240801. Subject is Ability New Brunswick Accessibility Review of the Community Youth Activity Center. And the background is that the town continues to look at opportunities for to make improvements to facilities to make them more accessible and open to the public. With the upcoming senior programming this fall at the Community Youth Activity Center, it was important for the town to have an accessibility review of the facility. Staff welcomed Wendy Scott, manager of Ability New Brunswick, to conduct a benchmarking exercise to identify areas of improvement for accessibility. This program was free to the town, and we have previously invited Ability New Brunswick to St. Andrews to review other facilities and businesses. Please see the attached report for a review of the accessibility report. Overall, the report provides staff with information on making the youth center more accessible. This report can be part of budgeting and asset management moving forward. And the motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews accepts the Ability New Brunswick Accessibility Report on the Community Youth Activity Center, and I so move.
Thank you. Seconder for that one. Got Councillor Heenan. Discussion. All in favor of accepting that report, please signify by saying aye. Aye, Your Worship. And any opposed? That's nobody. That has been carried. And I do look forward to really diving in at budget time about some of those findings, because I do find it a gap in our community. We made small progress, but we have so far to go in it that I think we can do more. That's where, and I think other organizations in the community could too as well, and private business for that matter. Next motion.
Going to me again?
It's all you. It's your show.
Yeah.
It's your portfolio.
Councillor Gumichel. Okay, gotcha. Reference number RE240805, award of tender 2024-03, Recreation Master Plan, Town of St. Andrews. Background is the Town of St. Andrews closed tender 2024-03 Recreation Master Plan on Friday, July 5th, 2024. There were 3 bids submitted for the town. The 3 companies that submitted included Glen Group, $37,390 plus HST, RCS Strategies, $39,795, again, plus HST. And then Stantec and Trace, $59,928.50 plus HST. RFPs were scored based on understanding scope of work, timing and scheduling, cost/budget, level of experience, methodology, and references. Council has approved a budget of $40,000 for this project. It is recommended by staff that Council approves RCS Strategies at a rate of $39,795 plus HST for the awarding of the Recreation Master Plan RFP. And the motion is that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews awards tender TSA 2024-03 Recreation Master Plan to RCS Strategies at a cost of $39,795 plus HST, and I so move.
And a seconder. Good. Councillor Hurdle, discussion on this one? Councillor Harland.
Thank you. So it's a question of process. So I respect the tendering process and recognize that there would be a scoring sheet in terms of how all of the applicants are based on. But it's difficult when it comes to requesting that we approve this. We've got no background information on anybody, on any of the companies, or the successful one that is being recommended. Is that standard? Is that how we've always done it? So the questions I have specifically are, what kind of work similar to this have they done in the past? Can you share anything with us?
Yeah, sure. And so to answer your first question, it depends, depending on how much council wants to get involved. We did send out a couple of emails to the portfolio managers, and they said it was okay for staff to go ahead and do it. You're certainly welcome to look at both the RFP and the process. All three groups are highly experienced on this. They provided in-depth, they provided references that were called and from local communities, all extremely happy with them. The Glen Group, if I remember, has been in business since 1985, I think, and did a lot of work in the southern half of the province. RCS Strategies has been around a long time, same type of thing. Even Stantec and Trace are good, but they were just, their budget for equivalent of the same work, more or less, their bid was a lot higher. And so in our RFP, it was several pages long. We laid out kind of what our community demographics were, some of the stuff we had to try to give them a sense of information. And we looked at both of them, and they provided an in-depth analysis. It was more than a 1 page. They were both like 30 and 40-page documents that the three staff members went through, called references and stuff, and determined. As you can see from a dollar standpoint, Glen Group and RCS Strategies are so close that usually indicates that it's a fair price, and so we're happy with there. But certainly, we'd like to be able to proceed with this. If you want to table it to review it, it's your prerogative. But in the future, if you want to be more involved, certainly do too. It's just we went through the process. For other things like housing and things, council tends to be a lot more interested in it, and so we'll have, in fact, some of our housing stuff, even as of recently, I think we had almost all the council review the different proposals and provide recommendations and things. So it's just on a case-by-case basis on how interested the council is in the particular item or how in-depth and community changing it is. The recreation master plans are fairly straightforward. Mm-hmm. It's a standard practice, and so you just have to go through. For us, what we looked at, both the top two provided basically the same thing, except we went with one that was a little bit more, but they seemed to have a lot more consultation going out to schools and stuff, and so that's why we determined that they probably had superior quotes. The other one had a per diem cost for any additional services, and when we added in the additional cost for them to meet the others, it was over and above what the bid was of RCS Strategies. So that's why we came up with that recommendation.
Okay. And what's the timeline?
Probably completed by Christmas or by the end of January. We hope to bring it to you probably realistically in the February for your review. Although there will be drafts available through the fall, later in the fall, for your information to look at and provide feedback if there's any information you think it's missing or any unanswered questions you'd like to delve in a little deeper.
And so will we have an opportunity to see ahead of time their plan?
If you like. Yep, no problem. We can email it.
They would also like to have meetings with counselors and council as a whole to get feedback and information, so they want to use you as a knowledge base within the process. But yes, we can provide you the methodology that they submitted through their RFP.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Councillor
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. Just a couple questions. Firstly, would it be possible to get a copy of the RFP just to read through it for my own purposes?
Absolutely.
And see exactly what they're going to do.
Yep.
And as far as the recommendations go, my thoughts on the recommendations are you're only going to get good ones. You're not going to get bad ones. So, you know,
Thank you.
worth with the worth.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Heenan.
Yes, Your Worship. I also believe that at certain times, we've always said, well, it can be the responsibility of our staff, which are very competent. And I do believe that if we have a RFP scoreboard in front of us, like understanding the scope of the work, the timing, I do believe that it has been gone through by staff and has come up with the best level of service for the money that we have provided. Therefore, we either have to say that we want to be totally involved or we leave it to the staff. And quite frankly, I think that the staff are far more inept at looking after our needs than we are by reading something. It's absolutely fine to have information, but I do believe that especially when it's written in black and white, the our RFPs that were scored, I do believe due diligence has been done on the RCS strategies. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think more or less the wasn't so much about them being awarded. It's just to make sure that the outcomes of the plan is something that is usable in our community and not just another expensive report that isn't used. Because, quite frankly, we see a lot of those happen, not necessarily in this municipality, but a lot of plans, a lot of reports, a lot of feasibility studies that cost a lot of money. And usually when you've got a plan like this, it does cost more funds. So we got to be prepared what comes along with that. A lot of the recommendations come with financial asks, right? So just setting that up. But yeah, council, anyone else? Okay, so we will call the question. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. That is everybody. That has been carried. We are now into our last one under the regular before we get to the 3 items in new business. But
Your Worship, I was going to say it's 2.5 hours.
In 3 minutes, I've got 2.5.
Yeah.
So I will look for a motion to extend this meeting for, we'll say 30 minutes from now. Does that make sense? Does that work for everybody? So can I have a motion to extend? Councillor Neal and seconded by Councillor Bennett. All in favor of extending, please signify by saying aye. Meeting is in overtime. So next motion. I don't know, Councillor Neal, if we have a conflict of interest since we are the Dragon Boat champions of the community and Katie's Cove record holder, but we'll save that for another time because I don't want to brag about that. Yeah. Again. Councillor Blanchard.
Reference number RE240804. No title to this one, but it's all right. The background is the town of St. Andrews has received a request for support from the St. Andrews Paddling Club for the upcoming 2024 Dragon Boat Festival. See the attached letter for details, and the request is for 24 metal barricades, 3 wooden road closure barricades, bleachers to be placed on the beach area for seating, up to 10 picnic tables, and additional garbage and recycling cans. Note that the town provided similar support to the SAPC last year. In addition, there are competing events for the picnic tables, including the Oktoberfest event in Market Square. Staff were able to balance all requests from both parties in 2023 and anticipate this can be the case again. So the motion before council is that the council of the town of St. Andrews approves the request for support from the St. Andrews Paddling Club for the 2024 Dragon Boat Festival on Saturday, September 21st, 2024, and to work with senior staff on arrangements of the equipment. And I so move.
Seconder. Okay, Counselor Heenan, discussion? Call the question. All in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye. That's everybody. We are now switching over to new business. Let's handle the noise exemption first, which is Counselor Neal.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. This is PWPS 240810. The subject is request for extension of noise bylaw for a wedding, August 10th, 2024 at Katie's Cove. The Town of St. Andrews has received a request from Katie's Cove Inc. to extend bylaw number 06-04, the noise bylaw, from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Saturday, August 10th, 2024 to accommodate a wedding at Katie's Cove. As this is a designated residential zone area as per the bylaw, council would need to approve the extension. It is recommended that the following terms and conditions be added to the request. Music must be played at a low volume between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. No contests or activities that would necessitate cheering or clinking of glasses would occur after 9 p.m. That the town send a letter to adjacent residents notifying them of the noise bylaw extension for August 10th, 2024. These are standard terms and conditions that have been used for other noise bylaw extensions. The last extension request was in August 2021 within the town plat. The motion reads that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the noise exemption request under bylaw 06-04, a bylaw concerning the regulating of noise in the Town of St. Andrews by Katie's Cove Inc. at Katie's Cove for Saturday, August 10th, 2024 from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. with the following terms and conditions. Again, music must be played at a low volume between 9 p.m. and 11 p.m. No contests or activities that would necessitate cheering or clinking of glasses would occur after 9 p.m., and that the town send a letter to adjacent residents notifying them of the noise bylaw extension for August 10th, 2024, and I so move.
Thank you, Counselor Neal. Seconder for that one. Counselor Harlan. Quick question on this one. So Katie's Cove Inc. is hosting this, is that to say? So they'll have representatives there all night to make sure that it is...
Funny enough, we were just talking about that, so yes.
Okay, sounds good. Just because I guess my concern is if bylaw enforcement isn't on that night and it isn't going what's planned, who is monitoring that, right?
Well, the next step, if there is issues, would be the RCMP.
Okay.
Maybe it wouldn't hurt to amend the motion to add that a representative from Katie's Cove Inc. must be present during the duration of the activity.
I would say representatives, because it's a pretty big outdoor area, and I just, this is part of my, what I do, and there's multiple staff that are checking to make sure. And then the question is just around alcohol, so.
From our understanding, it is not our land. That's a deal that the Katie's Cove Inc. will have to deal with the wedding organizers.
Okay.
I know that this was more of a short notice situation that they've been trying to work through.
Is this one, sorry to interrupt, is this one I'm aware of?
Yes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Council, any questions, comments? Councilor Hurdle.
Thank you, Worship. The last two times I think we've seen this on Queen Street and I think on Harriet over the years, we talked about actual radius of properties being notified. I think it was maybe 100 meters, but this time we're talking about adjacent properties. That's adjacent to that property? There's nobody adjacent to that property, right? So
actually, there is. Well, there's a little bit of a buffer zone, but there are houses along Champlain Avenue and then along Quaddy Shores. So we would at least notify those within the general radius of Katie's Cove that's happening.
Sound travels over water.
Correct.
Yeah.
yeah. Thank you.
Okay, Council, any other questions? Okay, call this. All in favor of approving this, please signify.
Did you want to make the amendment to add Katie's Cove?
Oh, sorry. Yes, could I have a mover to amend that, to add the representatives? Yeah. Maybe we'll put a minimum of 2 representatives. Does that make sense? Okay, Councilor Heenan has moved to amend that, seconded by Councilor Bennett. All in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye. Okay, I'm going back to the question. All in favor of approving this now, please signify by saying aye. This has been approved by everyone, Mr. Knopper. We are now getting into, let's jump to the meeting schedule one.
Thank you, Council. As it was emailed to you, the schedule we've been trying to piece out a schedule going forward from August right through to December, so you have an idea of what you're prepared and what you're getting into, or what we're all getting into, I should say. So noted in the report, this does not contain things like the municipal plan, further discussions, any of the other public hearings of objection that we host. This is really just looking at council schedule. More specifically, looking at September. So September, we'll have a council meeting on September 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. Just give me a yep, thank you. And then from there, the situation is the town, we're actually hosting the AMMB conference. So that's all the association members from municipal administrators coming here. So we'll be doing that from basically the 10th right through the 13th, but still anticipate to have the staff-led council meeting on the 9th with council. Then CAO Spear is on vacation the following week, so this is going to limit us for the amount of time we can piece together an agenda, but I can, through the week of the 16th, get an agenda out for the regular council meeting. It might not be as full as, depending on what's come forward from the staff-led meeting, as well as anything that we need to carry forward. But then we're looking at starting into budget discussions as of the 25th. And going into hopefully calling out a special meeting to groups and organizations that are requesting over $5,000 for them to come and present to council like they did last year, and subsequently moving into October. Similar process, continuing with special meetings. You have the UMMB conference coming up, so those that haven't said they would like to go, please let me know. Following that, regular council meeting, special budget meetings. We do have it highlighted right now on the 19th to do a day meeting of council if you want for budget. So just please be aware of that. We can discuss further as we come down.
That would be a Saturday, just for clarification.
And then leading into that, we'll continue with regular meetings, special council meetings, and then right into November. So the goal will hopefully be able to pass the budget at the November 4th council meeting. That gives us time within the provincial regulations to have our budget in by the 15th of November, although there's a little flexibility, but at least if we can have it registered in, that would be great. But continuing into December, leading into the final council meeting, if necessary, on the 16th of December to close out the community. So this gives you an idea of what your pace and looking at beyond just with the regular meetings, not including anything else of public consultations, municipal plan, zoning bylaw. The list goes on. So just giving you, if council is okay, more specifically with September, with that schedule, if you're good to approve that, we'll start getting you guys listed onto your calendars, having it all out to you, and continue building off of this.
Putting it in the calendar is critical. Yeah. Big commitment coming down the stretch here. A quick question, Mr. Spear. When do we anticipate knowing what the growth of the tax base to be for the tax area? Is that October?
It's usually mid-October.
Mid-October, okay. Just because that's so relevant in the mill rate conversation.
Sorry, just to touch on Councillor Heaney, you are correct. There isn't a meeting on the 19th in August. We did cancel that one. That was, I thought I'd sent a revised version of that. But we will still do the regular meeting tonight, the staff-led meeting. Then you've got the heritage meetings coming up, as well as the PAC meetings and the New Brunswick Power meeting happening on the 21st.
And actually, well, I've got your, here, we heard back from the architect that had presented, so they're getting ready to put together kind of the
MBCC.
Yeah, the MBCC project, sorry, to get the final conceptual drawing and costing and stuff. They'd like to be able to present to council, I guess, A, virtually or in person, and B, do you want to set aside a night all on its own? We could do it at a staff-led time, but we find when we do anything during a staff-led time, it just puts too much pressure on discussions during the staff-led meetings.
I'd prefer not to do it during the staff-led, just because we talked about how important the registers are, and that's how we deviate away from it. So let's keep that specifically for the registers. So I think a virtual meeting would be great myself. Yeah. Okay.
When are they looking?
They're waiting for feedback from us. They're wrapping up, and I'm going to say probably the last half of this month. So I'll try to keep it away from the long weekend. So I'll have to talk to them, but maybe, November, which doesn't have any. Would everyone, like, maybe just because they're used to Mondays, the 26th of August work? Theoretically? And we said virtually, okay.
Yeah, essentially every Monday I just assume it's a council night, so.
Okay, we'll put that in and put a question mark around it, but I'll let them know tomorrow. And it sounded like in the return email today, that should be doable. It sounds like they're on the final phases of putting the presentation together.
Okay, all right, council good with that? Nick? Go ahead.
Looks like we might have a heritage meeting that night on the 26th.
You do.
Oh,
Go 28th.
28th?
That's why it's a good assumption that we have a meeting every Monday. Okay. All right, council. Really not much we can do about that. Next one was the job description one.
I forgot to run that off, so I don't know.
I got it here.
Paul's got it here. Councillor Bennett had made a comment, so I don't know if Councillor Weir wants to read it, or if you want the clerk to read off everything.
Doesn't, do you have, Councillor Weir doesn't have it right now?
Or not, sorry, Councillor Weir, Councillor Heenan, it should have been, it falls under
Yeah,
F&A.
the clerk can read it and Councillor Heenan can move if he likes the sound of it, I guess.
Give me 2 seconds to load up.
It was for the senior tour guide, right?
Correct. So council, this is FA 240828. It's in regards to a human resource job description for senior tour guide. So as part of the human resource policies for staff, it was determined we were missing a job description for the senior tour guide for the Ross Museum and Sheriff Andrews House. Provided you were emailed a copy of that today. With the job description, it's very similar to the job description of the base tour guide, but there is a separation that there is an ability to lead and organize the museums that day, as well as oversee the other tour guides to ensure that they're managing or ensuring that they are doing their proper due diligence within the tours, but also just keeping that facility going. The senior tour guide still responds to our museum supervisor, who takes care of Sheriff Andrews House, the Ross Museum, as well as the Block House. So it's just making, and it is within our organizational chart. It was just a job description that was missing. Yeah. Now, I know Councillor Bennett had a couple of comments in regards to the job description, but at this point, staff are requesting that the Council of the Town of St. Andrews approves the job description for the senior tour guide for the human resource policy.
Okay.
That's the motion.
Councillor Heenan moved. Is there a seconder for that one? Councillor Hurdle, discussion on that one? Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So everybody, thank you, council. That will wrap up the motions for this evening. Very long one, appreciate it. The bad part of having one meeting a month is that it does backlog quite a bit, so thank you for getting through that. We are now in question period. Is there anyone online at this point in the evening, Mr. Knopper, or anything received digitally by email?
There was nobody on Zoom, and give me 2 seconds. My email is just reloading. And I have received no comments at this point.
Perfect, thank you, appreciate it. Anyone in the audience like to ask any questions this evening? No. All right, councillor and deputy mayor's comments. Any member of council like to speak? Councillor Weir.
I guess I got 3 things on here. Firstly, the budget process. I do intend to go into it a little deeper this year, but I'll do it myself with the help of the CAO. Provide some information to me, and I'll dig into it. As far as news in Bayside, last week Lineage, who owns 400 shares of the port and the coal store and the dry storage warehouse, as well as Stevedore and Company, did their initial public offering, IPO, and they were going to try to raise $40 billion It went better than they expected. They got 44.4 billion. They are the largest refrigerated company in the world now. So they are operating here in our community. They started in 2008, so this is how long it took them. Most of you would not know that there's 2 founding partners. One of them, his brother-in-law, lives here in the town of St. Andrews. So he comes here periodically. That's when I see him, but anyway. So I thought it was newsworthy that, for an initial public offering of that amount, is the biggest one in the world this year. So we have that. There was a large transfer of land from Natural Resources to Opportunities New Brunswick in Bayside also. I know more about that than I can say at this point in time, but I can say that, and you'll be hearing about that in the future also. So that's, I guess, my news.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a unbelievable amount of money to have a $40 billion target and exceed it by $4 more billion. It's just talks of how small the business I work in is. Talks about how small our wharf problem is, actually. But thank you for that, Councillor Ware. Anyone else? All right. Thank you, Council. I'm going to, in the essence of time, have no comment tonight either. So appreciate everybody for their time. Do we have any reason to go to closed session tonight? No, that's good news. Okay, so I guess we'll be looking for a motion to adjourn. Wait, Deputy Mayor's not here. I don't know how to do this. Councillor Bennett and then Councillor Heenan, all in favor of adjourning, please signify by saying aye. Thank you. We are adjourned.